Think back to the beginning of any classic RPG you've ever played. The formula is almost always the same, right? A princess in danger needs to find a group of legendary heroes to save her kingdom from a looming conspiracy. The 7 Deadly Sins kicks off exactly like that. It feels like a ready-made video game story, complete with a short bar-owning protagonist, a talking pig who's the perfect comic relief, and a group of supposed criminals who are, in reality, the kingdom's last hope. But here's the twist. The story totally throws you off. What starts out as a medieval rescue mission to save Princess Elizabeth quickly spirals into a 3,000-year-old holy war with angels, demons, and power levels that would make even Dragon Ball Z characters jealous. It's a story that gloriously spins out of control in the best way possible. And today, we're diving back into this epic journey that captured the hearts of anime fans around the world. 10 years ago, a mission went horribly wrong. We see a young knight named Alioni stumbling upon a horror movie scene. Dozens of dead holy knights with the blame falling squarely on the 7 Deadly Sins, who supposedly betrayed the kingdom. Cut to the present day, near Kane's village, where a knight in rusty armor is seen staggering towards a bar called the Boar Hat. Inside, the patrons are drinking and complaining about the awful food, all while gossiping about the legendary 7 sins. When the armored figure collapses at the door, the plot twist hits hard. It's not a knight, it's a girl, and not just any girl, but Princess Elizabeth Leones. She explains she's in disguise, on the run to find the 7 deadly sins and stop the Holy Knight's coup. The king, her father, isn't sick. He's been overthrown. The bar's owner, a young blonde kid named Meliodas, seems like just a nice guy until the Holy Knight Twigo shows up to attack. That's when the mask drops. Meliodas introduces himself as the dragon's sin of wrath and the leader of the 7 deadly sins.
Meliodas, if you really want to know.
He defeats Twigo without breaking a sweat, revealing an absurd level of power. Now, the mission is clear. Elizabeth needs the kingdom's most wanted criminals to save it. Meliodas agrees to help, and the two escape on the back of Hawk's mom, who is literally a giant pig, while Twigo rushes to inform his superiors that one of the sins has been found. Now working as a waitress at the Boar Hat to gather information, Elizabeth travels with the group to Varnia village. There, they discover the town is in crisis. A holy knight named Gilthunder plunged his sword into the ground and cursed their water source, bringing the village's ale production to a grinding halt, the ultimate tragedy. We meet Mead, an orphan boy who first brags about being friends with the sins, but later confesses he lied because Gilthunder treated everyone horribly and he wanted to feel important. Elizabeth relates to the boy, sharing that she also used to act out to get her father's attention. To solve the problem, Meliodas simply yanks Gilthunder's sword out of the ground like it's nothing, and the entire village celebrates. But Gilthunder, suspicious, decides to run a test. From nearly 7 miles away, he hurls a spear toward the village to see if it was a fluke. Not only does Meliodas catch the spear in midair, but he throws it back with so much force that it obliterates part of Gilthunder's fortress. With this display, Elizabeth suggests they hide in the perilous Forest of White Dreams, where Meliodas senses the presence of another sin. The group enters the feared Forest of White Dreams, a place even the Holy Knights avoid. Right away, they're greeted by prankster imps, mischievous little creatures that love a good prank and shapeshift to confuse them, first appearing as multiple hawks and then as copies of Elizabeth. But Meliodas, nobody's fool, identifies the real Elizabeth when she refuses to obey his command to jump. Following the defeated imps, they finally find the serpent's sin of envy, Diene, a giantess who is completely smitten with Meliodas. When she wakes up, she first mistakes Meliodas for an enemy and attacks him. Then, seeing him with Elizabeth, jealousy hits hard. She calls him a traitor and hurls him away, destroying the forest in the process. That's when Diene drops the bombshell that explains everything. 10 years ago, the 7 sins were summoned by the great holy knight, Zaratras, but when they arrived, they only found his body impaled by lances. They were framed for their leader's murder. The mess gets even bigger when Gilthunder appears and traps everyone with rings of lightning. Meliodas recognizes him as Little Gil.
Hey, wait a minute, are you little Gil?
What? You know him too?
In the ensuing battle, Meliodas proves he's not just strong, but smart. He lets himself get wounded on purpose and feigns dying just to trick Gilthunder into revealing where Bon and King are. After getting the information he wanted, Dien simply hurls Gilthunder out of the forest like he's trash. The group then heads for Basta Dungeon, where Bon is being held. They make a pit stop in Dalmary Town because Meliodas, who is badly injured, needs a doctor. There, Dr. Dana tends to him. Meanwhile, Dien and Elizabeth have a heart-to-heart about their insecurities. Basically, Dien wishes she were small so she could be close to Meliodas, and Elizabeth wishes she were giant and strong enough to protect everyone. The grass is always greener on the other side, isn't it? Their conversation is interrupted in the worst way possible. A holy knight named Frisia appears, and as if that weren't enough, she brings a swarm of disgusting insects to destroy the town, like a biblical plague, anime style. But Dien doesn't stand for it and crushes the bugs, protecting the townspeople and proving that, despite her jealousy, she's a hero.
Now bring it on. I'll squash every last one of those things.
And then comes the plot twist. Dr. Dana reveals he betrayed them. The medicine he gave Meliodas was actually a deadly poison. To make matters worse, another knight, the invisible Golgias, appears to kidnap Elizabeth and steal Meliodas' sword. And while all this chaos unfolds, the episode cuts to Bon, imprisoned in Baste, with metal spikes driven through his body, casually whistling a tune. He even breaks out of his cell and faces down an apprentice knight, showing that his rescue is going to be very interesting.
There's only one wound on me, and it's this one right here, got it?
Golgias tries to carry out his mission to kidnap Elizabeth and steal the sword, but he didn't count on one thing. Poison? What poison? Meliodas wakes up as if from a nap, unleashing an aura so sinister that Golgias runs for the hills. The group then continues their journey to Baste Dungeon, but on the way, they find Dien completely confused, with no memory of anything. Suddenly, a mysterious bell starts to ring, and out of nowhere, Dien and then Meliodas lose their minds. They go berserk and start beating the crap out of each other, with Elizabeth and some innocent shepherds caught in the crossfire. Meanwhile, a dying Dr. Dana laments not being able to save his daughter, Senate, and apologizes for trying to kill Meliodas. Elizabeth blames herself for his death, but then Meliodas delivers a motivational speech worthy of a life coach. I decided to find the 7 deadly sins with you and stop the holy knights. Even if you die, I will fulfill the promise I made to you. The line is so impactful that a flashback reveals he made a similar promise to someone named Liz in the past. Back at the dungeon, Bond continues his escape and gets stabbed in the chest by a man named Jude. His reaction? Nothing. The guy seems to be immortal, like Wolverine, but with more swagger.
Okay, have a nice life.
The fight between the out-of-control Meliodas and Dien rages on, while Elizabeth desperately tries to snap them out of it. The insect-wielding knight, Frisia, appears and threatens the shepherds, but Elizabeth throws herself in front of them, getting seriously injured. And then comes the plot twist. One of the shepherds was actually a disguised holy knight named Ruin. He was the one ringing the bell all along, like a DJ of chaos. Ruin doesn't appreciate the interference and starts beating Elizabeth, but even while battered and bruised, she manages to slap the bell and break the hypnosis, instantly freeing Meliodas and Dien. With their heads clear, Meliodas charges at Ruin while Dien takes care of Frisia in simultaneous battles. And then, the most anticipated reunion happens. Bon and Meliodas see each other. Their joy is so overwhelming that they start a reunion brawl that completely destroys the entire dungeon. Their hug has more destructive power than an atomic bomb. After winning their fights and rescuing Senate, Dr. Dana's daughter, the group finally sits down for a meal, but the peace is short-lived. Strange meteors streak across the sky, a sign of disaster, and to end on a cliffhanger that leaves everyone on edge, the scene cuts to Leona's castle and reveals that King, another deadly sin, is alive and working with Gilthunder. What? How is their friend on the enemy's side? Here, Bon wakes up from some strange dreams where he's trying to steal immortality from the Fountain of Youth and is always stopped by a mysterious girl, who we later learn is Elaine. After breakfast, with Meliodas tied up by Hawk to keep his hands to himself, the group decides to head to the necropolis, the capital of the dead, where King is rumored to be. They stop in a village to gather information, and Bon finds 2 siblings, Ellen and Luigi, offering food in exchange for tips. The conversation is interrupted in the most dramatic way possible.
Hey, Bon. How goes?
A brief skirmish ensues that makes it clear these two have a very complicated past. As soon as King sees Dien, he simply turns and flees, completely flustered. That's when Ellen reveals the key to entering the necropolis, a priceless memory shared with someone who has passed away. This instantly triggers Bond's memories of Elaine, and the portal opens for the group. The episode starts to delve into Bond's past and his connection to the Forest Guardian. And to make things even weirder, we discover that Ellen and Luigi are actually ghosts. To top it all off, a mysterious female holy knight, later revealed to be Gila, appears in the village, confirming that the necropolis is real and that the holy knights are hot on the Sin's trail. Inside the necropolis, King wastes no time turning Bond to stone as revenge for the death of his sister, Elaine. But then, Elaine's spirit appears and undoes the spell, leaving King in shock, as he never expected to see her there.
Hello, Elaine.
From that point on, we dive into a long flashback revealing Bond and Elaine's tragic past. They had a 7-day romance, falling in love despite being natural enemies, a human thief, and a fairy guardian. The flashback shows how a red demon attacked the Fairy King's forest, and Elaine sacrificed herself to save Bond, passing the power of the Fountain of Youth to him with a kiss before she died, which made him immortal. While Bond and King deal with their past drama, outside, Meliodas, Dien, and Elizabeth are getting their butts kicked by Gila. The Holy Knight has powered up with demon blood, and is so strong that the Sins can't handle her, even in a 3-on-1 fight. Elizabeth, despite having no powers, tries to help, showing she has courage to spare. The ground shakes so violently from the fight that Bond and King feel it inside the necropolis. At first, King refuses to help, but Bond realizes his friends are in deep trouble and decides to join the fray, leaving King alone to process his sister's death and Bond's role in it. When things get dire, King finally decides to show up and fight. Without much effort, he humiliates Gila using his sacred treasure, Chastifol. His victory is so swift it showcases the insane power difference when a Sin has their special weapon. Meanwhile, in the necropolis, Bond and Elaine share one last emotional moment. She forgives Bond and asks him to move on before the group has to leave. Ellen and Luigi say their goodbyes, confirming once and for all that they were friendly ghosts. Elizabeth is left speechless by King's overwhelming victory, as he single-handedly defeated an enemy who had danced circles around Meliodas, Bond, and Dien combined. That's when King drops a truth bomb. If the others had their sacred treasures, the fight would have been a piece of cake, and so begins the group's new mission, to recover these legendary weapons. Meanwhile, in the kingdom's dungeons, Hendrickson is conducting his sinister experiments. Jericho and Twigo are offered the power of demon blood. Jericho survives the transformation, but Twigo isn't so lucky. Thus, the new generation of Holy Knights is born. To close things out, the group arrives in Vizel for an annual fighting festival, and discovers that the grand prize is Gideon, Dien's sacred treasure. There's just one problem: giants are forbidden from participating, so Dien is left out while Meliodas, Bond, and King sign up under fake names. Dien and Elizabeth are in the forest foraging for food, like Little Red Riding Hood and her grandma, when they stumble upon a weird-looking mushroom. Dien, ever curious, pokes the mushroom. It releases a puff of pink smoke, shrinking them both. Dien down to the size of a human, and Elizabeth to the size of a Barbie doll.
What was that?
It's like a lab accident that actually works out, because now Dien can enter the fighting festival in disguise, wearing Elizabeth's clothes. She dubs herself Matrona and gets ready to rumble. The tournament proceeds Street Fighter style, with quick elimination rounds that determine the 8 finalists. In the quarterfinals, things get serious. The Holy Knight Griamora faces Matrona, the shrunken Dien, and the giantess struggles to fight without tearing the borrowed clothes, but she still manages to shatter his defensive barrier. In another match, Holy Knight Hauser takes on the 3-time champion Tai Zu and wins with a single windy punch in true One-Punch Man fashion. King, fighting without his sacred treasure Chastifol, looks like a total amateur and gets beaten badly by a drunk old man named Cain Barzad. It's clear that the Sins are far more vulnerable without their toys. Meanwhile, the gossip mill is turning. Hauser finds out that King, Bond, and Meliodas are the 7 deadly sins, and Princess Veronica shows up, revealing that the royal family is on Elizabeth's tail. To make matters matters worse, the tension mounts as Gila, Jericho, and Marmus are seen heading towards Vizel, ready to crash the party. The fight between Meliodas and Ban begins, and it's an event worthy of Dragon Ball Z. The two trade blows with absurd force, making the entire arena tremble. They're on a completely even footing in a frantic exchange of blows that seems endless. Things get so intense that at a crucial moment, Meliodas grabs Ban's wrist and hurls him out of the ring with a powerful strike. The serious expression on his face worries King and Dien, signaling that playtime is over.
And then, a second later.
In the semi-finals, Dien faces Hauser. She fights carefully to avoid ruining Elizabeth's dress, but still manages to counter his wind attacks and finishes the match with a devastating body lock using her heavy metal technique. But the episode's gut punch comes when Cain Barzad, the old man who beat King, confronts Meliodas. He reveals he's a survivor from the kingdom of Danafor and knows about the death of Liz, a woman Meliodas loved. Cain questions whether he can trust the Cactan after the kingdom's destruction, but Meliodas assures him he tried to protect everyone and makes a promise.
I tried to save all of them. I failed. So this time, I won't let that happen!
Cain believes him and forfeits the match. The final is set, Dien versus Meliodas, but the friendly atmosphere is shattered when some girls in the crowd start cheering for Meliodas, awakening a giant-sized jealousy in the giantess. Meanwhile, Gila, Jericho, and Marmus are getting closer, ready to invade the festival. The party's over. Dien, blinded by jealousy, lunges at Meliodas, but their fight is cut short. Meliodas senses danger and orders the evacuation of Vizel. It's too late. Gila, Jericho, and Marmus arrive in full force, in a coordinated attack that catches the Sins completely off guard. The new generation Holy Knights came to play on hard mode. Jericho, transformed with demon blood, gravely wounds Ban and somehow blocks his regeneration. Suddenly, the immortal doesn't seem so immortal anymore.
What the hell? Is this for real? I'm bleeding.
Gila uses her chain explosion technique to defeat Meliodas, creating a web of traps that leaves him with no escape.
Chain explosion.
King manages to fight them both off, but he's caught by surprise when the tournament referee, Love Helm, reveals himself to be Helbram, a super powerful holy knight with some old beef with him. It's a total disaster for the heroes. Amid the chaos, Elizabeth returns to her normal size and shows incredible courage, trying to save the unconscious Sins. Her sister, Veronica, seeing the danger, puts her grudge aside and tries to protect Elizabeth by trapping Meliodas in a magical jewel called the Goddess Amber. But as she throws herself in front of one of Gila's explosions to save her sister, Veronica dies in her arms.
Princess Veronica!
Wake up! Please, open your eyes!
Elizabeth's desperate scream, calling out for Meliodas, is so powerful that the Goddess Amber shatters. From it emerges a different Meliodas, cloaked in dark energy, as if he's activated demon mode. It just got personal. This is where things get serious. Meliodas finally breaks free from the Goddess Amber, but the power he unleashes is dark and completely out of control. He's no longer the easygoing captain we know. The first thing he does, he reclaims his sword by attacking Gila and slicing her hand off in the process. His energy is sinister, and when Ban asks if that's really Meliodas, he's simply cut in half by his own captain. Yeah, things have gone south. Meliodas goes after Helbram in a brutal fight, displaying overwhelming dark power. The weirdest part is that Helbram acts like a scientist in the middle of the chaos, taking notes on Meliodas' transformation. After studying his opponent, Helbram uses a power borrowed from Hendrickson and manages to defeat him, but then Dien appears, back to her giant form and wielding Gideon. She unleashes her Mother Catastrophe technique, causing the ground to collapse and forcing Helbram to retreat. Elizabeth sees Meliodas in this dark state and is terrified, but even so, she manages to see who he truly is beneath all that darkness. Ban, showing incredible loyalty, gets Elizabeth, Hawk, and King to safety. In the end, Helbram gets what he wanted. He steals Meliodas' sacred sword.
One of the keys to reviving the demon race.
To wrap things up, we see Ban and King training, and Ban reveals his plan. He wants to use the Horn of Kern and Oz to resurrect Elaine with the power of the goddesses.
I'll call on him and have him bring back Elaine.
Bon.
So keep it coming! Bring it!
This episode kicks off with a mystery. Reports of an armored giant roaming Orden Forest. Helbram wastes no time and sends his elite unit, the Dawn Roar, to exterminate the creature. The story splits into several parts. We see Gila visiting her brother Zeal and annihilating some bandits who tried to rob him. Meanwhile, the Sins split up in a village to gather intel, like an RPG party. Elizabeth and Hawk meet a mysterious boy named Alan, who's looking for glue to repair a suit of armor. He seems super innocent, but you can already feel there's something more to him. The connection between this boy and the so-called armored giants becomes the central puzzle. The Dawn Roar, the Holy Knights elite squad, enters the scene to hunt the giant, and these guys show they mean business. The climax is a three-way battle: Meliodas, Bon, and King against the Dawn Roar, all while trying to protect the armored giant. When the Dawn Roar fires a deadly arrow at the giant, Alan jumps in front to intercept the blow, and then comes the big reveal.
The goat sin of lust. My name is Gother.
He starts dropping philosophical reflections on life and reveals he's a doll created by a powerful wizard, and the giant, it was his companion Dale inside the armor. Basically, we've just met an existentialist Pinocchio who's trying to understand emotions. After the revelation that Gother is a living doll, the episode delves into his backstory. He's an artificial creation who has a tough time understanding human emotions and relationships, like a robot trying to learn what love is. Meanwhile, Elizabeth uncovers a bombshell about Meliodas' past. There was a woman named Liz, who was the spitting image of Elizabeth and died 16 years ago protecting the kingdom. It's the classic look-alike ex-girlfriend plot. This revelation throws Elizabeth into an identity crisis. Does Meliodas see her as herself, or just as a replacement for Liz? The tension between them grows as she grapples with these confusing feelings about who she is and their relationship. Elizabeth's journey runs parallel to Gother's. While she's drowning in complex emotions, he's starting from scratch, asking the other Sins direct questions about friendship, love, and connections, things he simply can't process. This episode is a crucial moment for both characters' development. Elizabeth needs to establish her own identity, separate from Liz, while Gother seeks to understand the very emotions that are messing with Elizabeth's head. These revelations and identity crises set the stage for the major conflicts to come. Here, Elizabeth finally snaps Meliodas out of his funk. She tells him straight up, she's not Liz, and he needs to stop living in the past and focus on saving the present. It's like a coach's halftime speech that turns the game around. Her words hit so hard that Meliodas wakes up, realizing Elizabeth's strength isn't just a copy, but something unique to her. He finally stops seeing a ghost and sees the powerful ally she truly is. Meanwhile, we find out why Meliodas was so messed up. Basically, the enemies were using his old trauma as a psychological weapon, like a horror movie villain who feeds on your worst fears. But now, the tables have turned. Speaking of villains, Hendrickson is full steam ahead with his evil plan. He's gathering the final pieces to resurrect the demon clan, like a demonic chef preparing a recipe for the apocalypse. With the ritual nearly complete, the 7 deadly sins realize they can't wait any longer. They start to organize and plan their assault on the capital. The real fight is about to begin, and each of the sins prepares for what lies ahead. The atmosphere is pure tension, with all the pieces moving on the board for the great showdown in Leones. The wait is over. The 7 deadly sins storm the capital in full force, in total Avengers style, to rescue Elizabeth.
Awesome. Full counter!
But out of nowhere, a new player enters the game. King Arthur of Camelot. He came for a meeting with King Bartra, but is greeted by Hendrickson instead. The mood turns awkward, and what was supposed to be a diplomatic visit becomes a tense standoff. Hendrickson tries to dismiss Arthur politely, but the kid is a skilled fighter and shows he's not to be trifled with. Meanwhile, Elizabeth and Hawk are magically teleported straight into a dungeon. Typical. Now they have to figure out how to escape, while chaos reigns outside. Meliodas, Bon, and Gother clean house, wiping out the enemy army like it's nothing. But the real show belongs to Diane. She takes on a whole crew of heavy hitters alone. Gila, Jericho, Gil Thunder, Hauser, Helbram, and even the great holy knight Dreyfus. It's basically a 1v6 against the entire server. Despite being outnumbered, she fights bravely, protecting civilians and even Gila's little brother. It's at this moment that Hauser and Gila have an epiphany. They see that Helbram is the one destroying the city, not Diane. The truth sinks in. The corruption of the Holy Knights is laid bare, and the two switch sides mid-battle, starting to defend the giantess. Diane's situation becomes critical. The episode's title says it all. Even if I should die, she continues to fight desperately, despite being an easy target for multiple Holy Knights. The promise she made to Elizabeth to protect the innocent is all that matters, and she refuses to give up. Her Earth-based powers are pushed to the limit as she creates barriers and shields to protect civilians from the destruction engulfing the capital. At this point, there's no denying that the Holy Knights are the true villains of the story. Hauser and Gila's transformation is complete. They go from antagonists to protectors, actively fighting against their former allies to defend Diane and the people. It's redemption on the battlefield. Diane embodies the spirit of sacrifice, willing to give her life for what she believes in, but King refuses to see it. He summons Chastifal to shield her, stepping into the battlefield himself, ready for whatever comes. The episode closes on this powerful image of his final stand, setting the stage for the ultimate showdown against Hendrickson and his corrupted Holy Knights. In this episode, we dive into a heavy flashback to understand King's past. We see his relationship with a young Diane,
Did I surprise you? It's time for dinner!
who found him badly injured after an attack. King had lost his memory and could only recall the face of his attacker, his best friend, Helbram. Diane took care of him in a cave for a long time. For her, it felt like decades. For him, a fairy, it was just a few days. They formed a super strong bond, with King making clothes for her and promising to love her forever, like a couple. A sweet romance that, unfortunately, Diane would later forget. Their peace is shattered when a human village is attacked. King goes to investigate and discovers the one responsible is none other than a disguised Helbram.
I did it so I'd never forget my hatred of humans.
It turns out Helbram was captured and tortured by humans who wanted his wings, and the trauma drove him mad with hatred. King has been forced to fight and defeat his best friend. To make matters worse, he decides to take the blame for all the deaths Helbram caused, which resulted in his sentence of 1,000 years in prison, a noble sacrifice to protect everyone. Back in the present, King finally defeats Helbram for good. In a heartbreaking scene, his friend dies peacefully, handing him a helmet he always wanted to give him as a gift. Even in his madness, a piece of their friendship was still there.
Hey, it's been a long time, hasn't it, Harlequin?
Meanwhile, the other battle rages on. Arthur is getting beaten badly by Hendrickson until Meliodas arrives to restore order and face the villain head-on.
And I'm not gonna leave without Elizabeth.
This episode is about breaking chains, literally. The fight is in full swing, with Meliodas and Arthur taking on both Hendrickson and Gil Thunder, as Elizabeth remains imprisoned alongside her father. Suddenly, Margaret, Gil Thunder's beloved, climbs a tower and throws herself off in what seems like an act of pure desperation.
Gil Thunder! Please stop this!
But then comes the plot twist. She was being controlled by an invisible monster latched onto her. Meliodas, who's no fool, destroys the creature, and in the blink of an eye, frees both Margaret and Gil Thunder from a curse that had haunted them since childhood. Now free, Gil Thunder immediately switches sides. He charges at Hendrickson, cuts off his arm.
I can finally take revenge on my father's murderer.
Finally, all of Gil Thunder's villainous actions make sense. He was just a puppet. And speaking of puppets, we discover that the mysterious mage helping Hendrickson is Vivian, the apprentice of the legendary Merlin. Speaking of whom, Merlin herself, the boar's sin of gluttony, makes her grand entrance.
The 7 deadly sins, Merlin. The boar sin.
She arrives with the calm demeanor of someone taking a stroll in the park, shatters Vivian's powerful spells as if they were nothing. The arrival of another sin completely changes the game, and Merlin immediately shows what she's made of, proving why she has a reputation as the most powerful mage in all of Britannia. The good guys team just got a major power-up. Bon is at rock bottom, exploring some catacombs where he finds an ancient artifact, the Horn of Kurna Nus. Desperate, he begs the horn to bring his beloved Elaine back, offering his own life in exchange. That's when things get sinister. The goddesses within the artifact respond, saying they can resurrect Elaine, but the price isn't Bon's life. His mission is something else entirely, to kill Meliodas. It's a manipulative proposal that preys on the immortal's grief.
Who do you want me to kill?
Dragonson, Meliodas.
Meanwhile, King Bartra has a vision and tells Elizabeth they will be separated again soon, in a very emotional moment. Shortly after, Merlin breaks another spell, and Meliodas and Elizabeth are finally reunited. That's when Margaret drops the bombshell of the century. The ones who killed Zaratraz weren't the 7 deadly sins, but Dreyfus and Hendrickson. The story everyone knew was a complete lie. To make matters worse, Hendrickson invades the castle, now with an army of holy knights turned into demons. Jericho is one of them, and embraces the power without regret. In the chaos, Hendrickson gravely injures Meliodas and Gil Thunder and captures Elizabeth. Seeing its captain wounded, Bon decides to fulfill his end of the bargain and attacks Meliodas, ripping off his arm.
I really do love you, Captain.
But then comes the final shock. Meliodas' arm reattaches to his body with dark magic, and it finally clicks for Ban. His best friend and captain has some connection to the demon clan. The conflict is now internal. It's total chaos, and for a change, Meliodas loses Elizabeth again in the middle of the mess. Meanwhile, Ban is facing a soap opera-worthy dilemma: save Elaine, his beloved fairy, by making a pact with the goddesses, or side with his friends. The decision gets even tougher when the goddesses gossip to him that Meliodas is from the demon race, the same one that killed Elaine. The result? Ban and Meliodas get into a nasty brother-like brawl. But then, who shows up to be the group's therapist? Hawk the pig. He explains to Ban that the goddesses' story is a total lie, and that they're just manipulating his pain. While the two protagonists sort out their differences, the rest of the kingdom is going up in flames. All hell is breaking loose. Diane faces off against Jericho in her monster form. King battles Helbram in the skies, and Golther tries to use his emotional control powers to stop Dila from turning into a demon too. To top it all off, Dreyfus decides he's tired of being the villain and goes after Hendrickson, trying to atone for his sins and stop his former partner. That's when Hendrickson drops the bombshell. There's a super powerful demon sealed in a castle wall, and it's the source of everything. In the end, Ban chooses friendship. He realizes he's been deceived and sides with Meliodas, showing just how strong the sin's bond is. Dreyfus gives it a shot, but gets his ass kicked by Hendrickson. As for King, he finally defeats Helbram, closing the tragic story of the corrupted fairy. With the subplots resolved, the 7 deadly sins regroup, ready for the final battle.
The 7 deadly sins.
Even with the knowledge of their captain's demonic origins, Hendrickson stands before the corpse of the Red Demon, the very same one that destroyed the Fairy King's forest. Golther senses the same sinister energy that came from the new generation of Holy Knights. And it's no coincidence. Hendrickson reveals that this body, found 20 years ago, is the source of all his demonic experiments. When Ban hears that this is the monster responsible for Elaine's death, he completely loses it. Filled with insane rage, he screams,
"'Cause I'm the one who killed that fat freak!"
He attacks Hendrickson with everything he's got and destroys the demon's corpse. After throwing Hendrickson to the ground, the sins follow him into a subterranean chamber. There, they discover the villain had a plan B, the body of a gray demon, an even stronger breed. Without a second thought, Hendrickson injects the creature's blood into himself in a bizarre transformation. He turns into a monster with horns and wings, ceasing to be human and becoming the devil himself.
Whatever that thing is, it's not human anymore.
Back on the surface, Hendrickson shows off his new power by massacring the Holy Knights. Gil Thunder, Gila, and the others attack together, but they barely scratch him, and just as he's about to finish off Meliodas with an attack called Dead End, the series' most unexpected hero makes the ultimate sacrifice. Hawk the pig jumps in front to save his friend.
Just hang in there. I'll save you, crazy bastards.
Fuck.
The pain of seeing his little pig die awakens Elizabeth's goddess powers. A brilliant light heals everyone and reveals she is an apostle of the goddess clan. Even so, Hendrickson is barely phased. He tries to attack Gil Thunder, but Meliodas blocks the blow and lands a punch so powerful it sends the villain crashing back to the ground. The season finale begins with the 7 deadly sins seemingly on the ropes, but Hawk's sacrifice was not in vain. Elizabeth's pain has activated her goddess powers to their max, and her divine light acts as a mega heal, curing the crew and giving everyone a buff for the final round. Meliodas comes up with a brilliant idea. He tells Golther to use his telepathy to create a mental group chat, synchronizing everyone's attacks. It's the true meaning of teamwork. While the others attack from the flanks, Meliodas goes one-on-one with Hendrickson, but with a crazy strategy. He gets beaten up on purpose. The goal is to charge his ultimate technique, Revenge Counter, which absorbs all damage received and returns it multiplied. The accumulated energy is so immense that Meliodas himself almost explodes with it. To make sure the villain can't escape, Gria Moore traps him in an indestructible magic barrier. With the enemy cornered, Meliodas unleashes the final blow and simply obliterates Hendrickson, who turns into cosmic dust.
And that is your sin! By the likes of you!
With victory secured, King Bartra officially pardons the 7 deadly sins, who go from fugitives to heroes of the realm. The remaining Holy Knights are sentenced to work on rebuilding Leonas. We see what happens to some characters. Gil Thunder decides to travel to help others. Jericho loses her demonic powers and is happy about it, and Gila keeps hers thanks to Golther. The season ends with the sins preparing to leave, but the king forbids Elizabeth from saying goodbye to Meliodas, setting up the next season's drama. The 7 deadly sins, now heroes, heroes have saved the kingdom from destruction.
My new journey with Meliodas and the 7 deadly sins.
Princess Elizabeth wakes up from a prophetic dream, a sort of spoiler for the next chapters of her life with the 7 deadly sins. While the kingdom of Leones is in reconstruction mode after the Holy Knight's coup, King Bartra prepares a ceremony to award medals to the 7 deadly sins, the heroes of the hour. And speaking of them, the crew has new looks. Meliodas in an outfit he got from Elizabeth, Golther with a fresh getup, King with a new helmet, and Diane in a little number from Merlin. It's practically a fashion show. But in the middle of it all, Bon approaches Meliodas and drops a bombshell. He's quitting the group. The next morning, Bon dips without saying goodbye, but King, who's no fool, catches him in the act and finds out his destination is the Fairy King's forest. At the ceremony, Meliodas has to deal with the people who still doubt them. A group of snooty holy knights, the Pleiades of the azure sky, demand a demonstration of power. Meliodas, without breaking a sweat, humiliates one of them, Dogedo, by breaking his fingers and showing him who's boss. Meanwhile, Gilthunder and Hauser play detective to investigate Dreyfus's room since Griamore refuses to believe he's a murderer. The calm of the ceremony is just a facade. The real Hendrickson wakes up and comes face to face with Dreyfus, but it's not really him. It's a demon named Fraudrin, who's been using his body like a puppet. He announces that the party's over, and that after 3,000 years, they have finally returned. To close out with a bang, Zeldris appears, hoping Meliodas is still alive, because their reunion is set. The threat of the 10 Commandments has just arrived in Britannia. We open on a 10 Commandments staff meeting. Fraudrin, still in Dreyfus's body, explains to his bosses that he only managed to free some of them because he only had a little of Elizabeth's blood. Garland, ever curious, asks what he's been up to for the last 3,000 years, and Fraudrin admits he only truly woke up 10 years ago and had to deal with the 7 deadly sins. Just hearing the group's name makes Zeldris think of Meliodas, hinting at a dark past between them. Since the demon's energy is lower than a phone battery at the end of the day, they decide to head to Edinburgh to recharge. Meanwhile, Bon and King continue their journey to the Fairy King's forest, with Jericho sneakily stalking them from a distance. They discover that the forest has not only returned, but is more alive than ever. The fairies celebrate their king's return, but the party nearly turns into a lynch mob when they realize King abandoned them. A fairy explains that it was Bon who saved everything, using a seed Elaine gave him. The grateful fairies want to crown Bon their new king, but he refuses, saying the title belongs to King. Back in Leones, the drama is in full swing. Meliodas activates his Ice Heart mode and dismisses Elizabeth from the next mission, telling her to her face that she's just dead weight. The poor girl runs off in tears, and Hawk and Diane, outraged, give Meliodas a piece of their minds. To make matters worse, Golther decides to go full Black Mirror villain and starts experimenting with memories, erasing Dula's memories of her brother and replacing them with a fake romance. When Diane confronts him, Golther states that memories are just data. The giantess rejects this computer logic and attacks him, defending the value of human bonds. Meliodas wakes Elizabeth up and explains the crazy thing that happened. Golther's memory manipulation was so powerful, it caused a kingdom-wide blackout. The fight between Diane and Golther ends with a reality check from the giantess, which snaps him out of it. Filled with regret, Golther begs to be imprisoned before he loses control again. That's when Merlin drops the biggest reveal. Golther isn't a living being, but an artificial doll created by an all-powerful mage, like a Pinocchio gone horribly wrong. That's why he doesn't understand emotions. Merlin then shrinks him down and places him in Slater's care. Meanwhile, the 10 Commandments find a gigantic crater, and Zeldris recognizes Meliodas' signature on it. Back at the Boar Hat, Merlin teleports everyone above Camelot, where an Albion, a giant ancient weapon of the demon clan, is wreaking havoc. King Arthur Pendragon and his knights are getting their butts kicked by the monster. Meliodas goes down to help, and in the most epic moment, Merlin returns his sacred treasure to him, the sword Lost Vein. It's like Thor getting Mjolnir back. With the sword, Meliodas multiplies himself like Naruto with his shadow clones and uses full counter with all of them at once, reflecting the Albion's attack and obliterating the beast. To wrap things up, we see King and Jericho in the Fairy King's forest. Bon performs a ritual by pouring his blood on Elaine's altar, and the forest begins to grow at an incredible rate. But the peace is short-lived. Another Albion appears just outside, ready to crash the party. The episode kicks off with Hendrickson running through the forest in a panic, like Forrest Gump, to warn Leones that the 10 Commandments are back. and they're not messing around. Meanwhile, in the Fairy King's forest, a giant robot, some kind of Albion, shows up to destroy the sacred tree. The fairies try to fight back, but they barely tickle it. King, who was just chilling on a giant sunflower, decides to join the fray, but the Albion is too tough and knocks him down. The fairies are confused as to why he's helping after everything they've done, but King is determined to protect his home. Down below, Jericho can't reach Bon because of a barrier. Bon is having a chat with Gerhan, who thanks him for resurrecting the forest, but says only King can be its ruler. Then Bon drops the bombshell. He's going to find a way to revive Elaine. Gerhard flips out, impales Bon with magic.
For the sake of the forest, this man will live on, remaining as its new fountain of youth.
Talk about terrible hospitality. Outside, the brawl continues. The Albion slices the sacred tree in half, and the fairies prepare to sacrifice themselves for King. Seeing this, King gets emotional and decides to unleash his final attack. He creates a gigantic spear and hurls it with all his might at the Albion, which explodes into 1,000 pieces. The effort is so great that King passes out. Far away, Fraudrin reports that 2 Albions have been destroyed. Melascula thinks it's risky for Galan to go out with low magic, but he couldn't care less, saying it's just a warm-up. Zildris even warns him not to be arrogant, but Galand launches himself into the sky, ready for a fight. In Camelot, Meliodas is explaining the situation to King Arthur. Suddenly, Diane's eyes turn purple and she gets confused again. Hawk, full of confidence, says Meliodas can handle anything, but the captain uses his clothes to grope Elizabeth and gets a slap from Diane. Suddenly, a massive cloud of dust rises, and Galand appears before them. Hawk's power level scouter glitches out, showing 26,000. The first real battle against one of the 10 commandments has begun. Meanwhile, in the Fairy King's forest, Bon heals King, who is now accepted as the true king. But Bon is already packing his bags to leave, leaving King high and dry. Back at the fight, Galand decides he needs more room and simply destroys the surrounding city. He challenges Meliodas, who attacks with his clones, but Galand is way too fast. He runs his blade through Meliodas' stomach and beheads all the clones like it's nothing. Diane turns giant and attacks with Gideon, but Galand just kicks the hammer right back at her head. Merlin tries to teleport the villain away, but he leaps out of her range. Slater, trying to protect Merlin, ends up losing an arm in the process. The situation is already bad, but it gets worse. Merlin tries to trick Galan with a lie, but his commandment of truth activates and turns her to stone on the spot. New rule of the game, you can't lie to this guy.
I'm more than confident that I'll be able to...
Seeing everyone getting beaten, Meliodas taps into his demon power. With a sinister tattoo on his face and purple flames on his arms, he finally manages to wound Galand, but the joy is short-lived. Galand impales the captain with his spear and even shoves the weapon through his eye. It's a historic beatdown. After humiliating everyone, Galand leaves because he can't break through Elizabeth's and Arthur's protective barriers. Gulthur arrives just in time to see the aftermath. Elsewhere, Hendrickson shows up to help Gilthunder, Hauser, and Griamore fight a great demon that's terrorizing a village. Griamore is shocked to see Hendrickson alive and immediately accuses him of killing his father. But when the Grey Demon attacks, Hendrickson saves Griamore and drops the bombshell. Dreyfus is still alive. Then comes flashback time. Hendrickson explains that 10 years ago, he and Dreyfus went to investigate the destruction of Danafor and found a demon, Fraudrin. The demon offered them power in exchange for their bodies and managed to possess Hendrickson. Under Fraudrin's control, they killed Zaratraz, framed the 7 deadly sins, and did it all because Fraudrin wanted revenge on Meliodas. Back in the present, Hendrickson uses Zaratraz's purification magic and defeats the Grey Demon, beginning his journey of redemption. Meanwhile, Meliodas wakes up with Elizabeth taking care of him. And there's another surprise. Merlin isn't dead. She transferred her soul to her crystal ball, Aldan, a second before turning to stone, and Gulthur reveals his genius plan. He messed with Galand's memories to make him think he had killed everyone, which is why he left. The guy is an evil genius, but for the good side, Merlin does the math on their power levels. The sins total 21,840, while the commandments have around 260,000. The numbers don't lie, they are completely screwed. The plan now is to find Escanor, the last sin, and train Elizabeth and Arthur. King finally returns through a portal, ready to see everyone again, but he walks into the worst possible scene. Diane has lost her memory and has no idea who he is. It's the perfect tragic end to an episode full of tragedy. tragedy. The only person she recognizes is Meliodas. The rest of the crew, including King and Elizabeth, are complete strangers. Merlin explains it was due to the blow to her head. A heartbroken King tries to reconnect, but things only get worse. Diane's eyes glow purple and she forgets even Meliodas. Basically a total factory reset. And then comes the bombshell. Gunther, the master of being the most clueless guy in the room, calmly states that he erased her memories as an experiment. King, justifiably, goes ballistic and sends Gunther flying into a wall, shouting that someone's heart isn't a toy. With Diane missing, the group sets off on Hawk Mama for Meliodas, her old home in the giant clan. Then we dive into a giant flashback, literally. We see a younger Diane with her mentor Matrona and her friend Dolores. Matrona is like a tough-as-nails drill sergeant, teaching that the purpose of giants is to fight and die in battle. But Diane isn't into that whole war vibe and prefers protecting to killing. When Dolores talks about running away, Diane offers to go with her, but her friend backs out. Alone, Diane bolts and meets Meliodas. Upon returning home, she discovers that Dolores was killed by bandits. On a mission with soldiers from Leones, Matrona and Diane fall into a trap. The humans plan to eliminate the giantesses all along. Matrona is struck by poisoned arrows while protecting Diane, and, in her final moments, reveals that she raised her at her parents' request, so she could protect herself without losing her kind heart.
Matrona, no! Please don't die! I can't take this!
While the crew is on Hawk Mama heading to Meliodas to find Diane, King asks why Merlin doesn't just teleport them. The answer is a classic, I'm low on mana. She needs to focus on keeping her soul in Aldan. Far away, Galand is bragging to the other 10 commandments that he defeated Meliodas' group, but Fraudrin doesn't quite buy it. Meanwhile, Diane, still without her memory, runs into Galand and Monspeet. And here's the loophole of the century. Since she genuinely doesn't remember them, Galand's petrification curse completely fails. It's like trying to give a spoiler to someone who's never seen the show. Galand lunges at her, but a mysterious giantess, who looks like Matrona, appears out of nowhere, saves Diane using earth magic, turns Galand into a block of stone, and sends Monspeet flying. The giantess knocks Diane out and takes her to safety before Galand can break free. Monspeet senses Meliodas' energy approaching and launches a magic attack, but Hawk Mama, cool as a cucumber, simply eats the blast. Seeing that Diane is off the radar, Merlin suggests a change of plans. It's time for Meliodas to reclaim his sealed power. She explains that 10 years ago, Meliodas lost control when a girl was injured trying to help them, forcing Merlin to seal away his strength for everyone's safety. They travel to Istar, the sacred land of the Druids. There, they meet the leaders Jenna, Zaneri, and the priest Theo. Zaneri takes Meliodas and Elizabeth to a tower and explains that he must pass a trial. When she activates her magic, Meliodas is thrown straight into his past in Danafor, where he meets Liz, beginning his trial to regain his power. Galand asks where Melascula has been, and she replies that she was having a little fun, making it clear the commandments are spreading terror across Britannia. Meanwhile, Bon continues his desperate quest to revive Elaine and hears a rumor about resurrection in the city of Ravens, heading there with Jericho. The main focus, however, is on Meliodas in the Tower of Trials. Elizabeth learns from Zaneri that the trial is to see if Meliodas' soul is worthy of having its power back, and the trial is brutal. He is forced to relive the most traumatic moment of his life, the death of Liz and the destruction of Danafor, in an infinite loop. It's like the movie Groundhog Day, but instead of romantic comedy, it's trauma and destruction on repeat. Zaneri's idea is to kill Meliodas' emotions so he won't lose control again. While Elizabeth watches this hell, she receives her own trial to make a poisoned flower bud bloom. At the same time, Jenna takes the rest of the sins to the training cave and finds a passed-out Hendrickson, along with Gil Thunder, Gria Moore, and Hauser. King, obviously, immediately goes to attack his old enemy. At the climax of the trial, Meliodas begs for one more chance, saying he needs to get stronger for those he loves. He understands that to pass, he should forget Liz, but he refuses. Elizabeth defends him, asking Zaneri to trust him. Then, Meliodas makes a promise. He will never let something like the destruction of Danafor happen again. With sheer determination, he finally wakes from the trial, stronger than ever. Over in Ravens, Bon and Jericho save a beastman from some thugs, and the guy reminds Bon of his impoverished childhood and his time with Zhivago. Jenna snaps her fingers and revives Gil Thunder, Hauser, Bowser and Griamore, who were passed out. King, on the other hand, is furious with Hendrickson and swears revenge for what he did to Helbram and the other fairies. Hendrickson accepts King's hatred, but says there's another priority now: saving Leonis and freeing Dreyfus from the clutches of the Ten Commandments. In the midst of all this drama, Jenna announces it's time for training. Then the episode dives into Bond's tragic past. We see him being beaten by his parents and thrown out into the cold. One day, some criminals trick little Bond with a fake coin, throw him in a barrel, and try to sell him to a noblewoman who enjoys torturing people for fun. But then Zhivago, a Foxman thief, shows up, saves Bond, and becomes a father figure to him. Zhivago teaches Bond how to steal to survive and always protects him when a plan goes wrong. He has a biological son, Celian, but can only visit him at night to avoid being caught by the Holy Knights. When Zhivago tells Bond to never trust humans, the kid replies that he only trusts him. Wanting to impress his father, Bond tries a heist on his own and ends up getting a major beatdown. Back in the present, Bond finds a dying Zhivago. The Foxman reveals that on the day Bond got beaten up, he found out the Knights had spotted his son Celion in the mountains. He had to make a Sophie's choice: save his adopted son or his biological one. He chose Celion, but arrived too late. Bond, in a moment of pure nobility, says Zhivago made the right choice and that he never hated him. They embrace, and Zhivago feels a weight lifted from his heart.
When did you grow up and get so damn big?
Meanwhile, in the training cave, King and Meliodas are paired up, but the partnership starts off rocky. King accuses Meliodas of being on the demon's team and attacks him with a staff. The beef between King and Meliodas continues in the training cave. King wants to know whose side Meliodas is really on. Meliodas keeps it real. If King turns his back on Elizabeth and the 7 deadly sins, then he will become his enemy. This answer only makes the Fairy King more suspicious. Meanwhile, in Ravens, Bond and Zhivago have their final conversation. Zhivago is shocked to learn that Bond is immortal because of the Fountain of Youth and that the saint, Elaine, who protected it died. Bond confesses he feels guilty for having to choose between killing his friend Meliodas or saving his beloved Elaine. Zhivago understands perfectly, having faced the same situation with Bond and his son Celion. With the wisdom of a Master Yoda, he says that Meliodas seems like a great friend and that Bond should go back and beg for his forgiveness. After this fatherly advice, Zhivago dies in Bond's arms.
We can be forgiven.
Back at training, King accuses Meliodas of being one of the 10 Commandments. Meliodas retorts, taunting that King doesn't even seem like the real Fairy King since he doesn't have wings. King attacks with a super concentrated power, and Meliodas, with his Sha Ringen mode activated, copies the technique instantly. Then comes the power-up moment. Jenna uses a ritual to return all of Meliodas' sealed power, which was stored in amber. As soon as the energy returns to his body, Meliodas asks Merlin to teleport him directly to the 10 Commandments. He shows up at the villain's hangout like he owns the place, gives Garland a humiliating beatdown, and says he just wanted to say hi. Zeldris, cold as ever, replies that they have nothing to talk about, and then comes the bombshell. Meliodas and Zeldris are brothers. Before the fight can begin, Meliodas vanishes into thin air, leaving a broken Garland screaming in rage. The 10 Commandments are licking their wounds after Meliodas' surprise visit. Zeldris takes charge, and his message is clear. The goal is to conquer Britannia. He orders everyone to split up to regain their power, using any means necessary to wipe out the other races. When asked if this is a war against Meliodas, Zeldris corrects them. It's not war, it's extermination. Garland tries to act tough, claiming he could beat Meliodas anytime, but Droll cuts him off, reminding him that lying activates his commandment of truth. Back at the hero's base, Meliodas lays out the strategy: defeat the commandments one by one. Meanwhile, Elizabeth fails her test of making a dead seed bloom. That's when the cosmic gossip comes out. Jenna reveals that Elizabeth is the reincarnation of Liz, Meliodas' great love from 3,000 years ago, and Zaneri, who has a crush on Meliodas, sabotaged Elizabeth's trial to try and break the couple up. Meanwhile, Melascula is playing The Walking Dead and raising an army of zombies. And who does she bring back from the dead? None other than Elaine, Bond's beloved fairy. But she returns corrupted and immediately sets out to find him. King senses Elaine's presence and rushes to the forest, refusing Meliodas' help because the trust between them is still shaky. The emotional climax happens as Bond and Jericho are burying Zhivago. They're attacked by a zombie, which Bond destroys without breaking a sweat. And then, out of nowhere, Elaine appears before him. The reunion is intense, complete with a cinematic kiss. fulfilling Bon's greatest dream. But there's a catch. We know she's been corrupted by Melascula's magic. Bon is in heaven, but little does he know the situation is a powder keg about to explode. After her resurrection, Elaine and Bon's reunion is pure fire, but the joy is short-lived. The fairy starts freaking out, thinking Jericho wants to steal Bon from her, and unleashes a full-blown attack. Convinced Jericho is a rival, Bon tries to calm the situation, telling her she's the only one for him, but it's no use. Elaine, completely possessed, lunges at him, demanding to know why he's protecting Jericho. That's when Jericho, brave as hell, stands up to Elaine, pins her to the ground, and drops a truth bomb. She loves Bon too, because he saved her life, but she tells Elaine that if her love is real, she can't let herself be controlled and hurt the person she loves. This straight talk gives Elaine a moment of clarity, and she screams for help. Bon embraces her, but she suddenly faints. And who shows up? The troublesome duo, Melascula and Galland. Melascula reveals she was controlling Elaine like a puppet, using her anger and regrets. Bon leaves Elaine in Jericho's care and charges into battle, promising to finish off both commandments. The fight is insane. Galland slices Bon in half, but since the guy is immortal, he regenerates instantly. Bon uses Hunter Fest to steal Galland's strength and returns it with a punch that makes the ground shake, but Melascula traps Bon in darkness and rips out his soul. In a shocking twist, Bon's soul escapes thanks to Zhivago's sacrifice, allowing him to attack them both and flee with Jericho and Elaine. After all that, he collapses from exhaustion, and Jericho has to carry them both to safety. Jericho is in full hero mode, carrying a battered Bon and a weakened Elaine while fleeing from Melascula and Galland. The chase is worthy of an action movie, with giant boulders rolling down a hill. Jericho dives, dodges attacks, throws her friends to safety, and even shatters a rock with her own sword. The escape continues until they fall off a cliff, but Elaine uses her magic to cushion the fall. They end up taking refuge in a tavern that seems to be run by a super frail old guy. But this old guy is none other than Escanor. Bon and Escanor recognize each other instantly. When Galland and Melascula arrive, Escanor hides the trio in the pantry and plays bartender. The commandments decide to have a few drinks, and Galland, acting all tough, challenges Escanor to a game, threatening to kill everyone if he loses. Bad idea. As soon as the sun hits its peak, the frail old man turns into a mountain of muscle.
And my name is Lionsin Escanor.
Escanor picks up Galland's ridiculously heavy axe like it's a toy and slices the demon in half. Galland regenerates, unleashes his max power of 40,000, but the attack barely scratches Escanor. When it's time for the counterattack, Galland tries to run, but his own commandment of truth turns him to stone for breaking the game's rule. He basically trolled himself. Melascula tries to steal Escanor's soul, but his power is so immense that she ends up catching fire from the inside and flees in flames. When night falls, Escanor returns to his old self. To top it all off, King appears and is shocked to see that Elaine is alive. This episode is like a crossover within the series itself, with multiple things happening at once. First, we have Denzel interrogating the captured Fraudrin. Denzel stabs the demon with a sacred sword, but Fraudrin drops a bombshell. If they harm him, they'll also harm Dreyfus, whose body he's possessing. It's a battle that showcases the demon's cunning against human determination. Meanwhile, Diane reunites with Matrona and discovers that her old mentor is not only alive, but now has a family. Matrona tells a crazy story of how a past good deed by Diane ended up saving her life. The problem is, Diane doesn't remember any of it, nor how she lost her memories. Suddenly, flyers for a Vizel fighting festival start raining down, promising to grant any wish to the winner. Meliodas and the crew suspect it's a trap, but decide to go anyway. And who's behind it? Gloxinia and Droll, of course. Demons attack Matrona's village, and she decides to enter the tournament to wish for the injured children to be healed. Diane, like a good friend, goes with her, armed with her hammer Gideon. Back at the prison, Fraudrin manages to escape with a little help, and drops the biggest reveal of all. He's not an original member of the 10 Commandments, just a substitute. He explains that the real commandment is missing, lost his memory due to his own curse, and that lost commandment is Golthar of Apathy. Yes, our Golthar. What a plot twist. We see Elaine thrilled to see King again, but his head is clearly with Diane. Elaine, who's no fool, picks up on it instantly and even teases him, saying she can read his thoughts, but he can't read hers. Meanwhile, Bon and Escanor are discussing a delivery mission, and Matrona and Diane arrive at the first challenge of the Great Fight Festival, a giant maze. This death maze, built by Droll, is so immense that even Matrona, a giant, is impressed. She tries to smash through the walls with brute force, but they regenerate instantly. Diane tries to play it smart by walking on top of the walls, but she gets zapped by lightning and thrown back to the ground. To make matters worse, the two get separated devastated when Matrona is distracted by what appear to be her children. Diane wakes up to find Hawk and immediately thinks about turning him into pork roast. Elizabeth shows up to save the pig and tries to explain that they're friends and that Diane has lost her memory, but Diane doesn't trust humans and continues deeper into the maze, with an incredibly brave Elizabeth following her. The place is filled with deadly traps. The floor opens up beneath them and Diane has to save them. Later, when Diane is covered in giant leeches, Elizabeth fearlessly dives into dangerous water to pull them off. The group faces copies of Meliodas, which turn out to be monsters. Luckily, Hauser and Gilthunder appear and use their combined wind and lightning attacks to drive them away. Next, a giant earth crawler emerges, and Hawk shows off his bizarre power to transform into the creatures he eats. Out of nowhere, a mysterious figure freezes the monster and vanishes. The ending is pure emotion. Elizabeth senses Meliodas through a wall. Bon appears and reunites with Meliodas with a friendly punch. They decide to create a shortcut, combining their attacks to blast through the wall, leaving Arthur's jaw on the floor. The gang finally reunites at the end of Droll's deadly maze, but the celebration is short-lived. Meliodas looks at Gloxinia and Droll and instantly recognizes them as members of the Ten Commandments. Gloxinia congratulates the survivors but announces he will kill anyone still trapped in the maze, and with his magic, simply eliminates everyone. King is shocked to realize that Gloxinia is the first fairy king, who he believed had been defeated by the Demon King. Before the tournament begins, Golther makes a grand entrance by bumping into Escanor and breaking his glasses, a precious gift from Merlin. This leaves Escanor devastated, sending him into a complete emotional breakdown. Gloxinia, losing patience, slashes Escanor badly with one of his tentacles, then heals him right after, just to prove who's in charge. Next, Droll separates everyone into pairs for tag team battles. Meliodas and Bon, Hendrickson and Griamore, Diane and King, Elizabeth and Elaine, and so on. Elizabeth and Elaine face two assassin knights. Elaine uses her magic to hold them back, while Elizabeth explains that their mission is to stop the Ten Commandments. In the middle of the fight, Elizabeth is caught by a serpent, but she still uses her healing powers to help her injured opponents, even knowing they tried to kill them. This compassion secures their victory. Meanwhile, Meliodas and Bon defeat their demonic opponents with absolute ease, casually chatting about Elizabeth and Elaine. The highlight happens in Diane and King's fight against the commandment stand-ins. King gets beaten up at first, and to protect him, Diane tucks him between her breasts. It's then that King reveals his true nature, transforming and scaring Diane, who throws him away. He then tells her he is the current fairy king, leaving both Diane and Gloxinia stunned. King uses his guardian form to protect Diane, promising he'll never let her feel scared again, even though she's still confused about their past. With Diane amazed by King's incredible power, the effort is taking its toll, and King can barely stand as he protects Diane, destroying and rebuilding Gloxinia's constantly regenerating flower servant. When he finally manages to incinerate the creature completely, King collapses from exhaustion. As Diane wonders why King went so far to protect her, Droll's golem attacks them both. Diane declares that it's now her turn to protect King. She creates her own golems, but they're easily destroyed. King, though worn out, gives her a tip. She needs to clearly visualize the golems in her mind to give them real power and form. Following his advice, she creates golems of her friends, Matrona, Meliodas, Elizabeth, Hawk, and even King. Most are destroyed, but surprisingly, the Hawk and King golems survive and defeat Droll's golem, securing their victory. Meanwhile, terrible news arrives. 9 cities have been attacked by the Ten Commandments, who devoured the souls of all the inhabitants. The kingdom of Camelot has fallen under Zeldris' control. Denzel orders Gila to return to Leonis with this information, warning that they now face not only the commandments, but also Golther. The episode's climax focuses on the showdown between Escanor and Golther. Escanor tries to forfeit, but Gloxinia won't let him, finding the situation more amusing. Golther then attacks Escanor with horrific visions of his traumatic past with Merlin, but the spell backfires. The visions trigger Escanor's pseudo-transformation into his daytime form. He summons his sacred treasure, Rita, and charges a devastating attack. Just as Escanor brings the axe down, Golther fires an invasion arrow.
Atone with your flesh!
Challenge accepted.
The dust settles, and Escanor has fallen, but Jericho reveals the plot twist. Escanor's attack wasn't for Golther. He aimed at Gloxinia and Droll, who now lie unconscious in a massive crater. After Escanor's insane attack left Droll and Gloxinia on the ground, the battlefield has become a giant crater. Wasting no time, Meliodas charges at Droll, dodging an attack and in the blink of an eye, slicing off 2 of the giant's 4 arms. Droll is shocked, but Meliodas tells him straight up, this was a planned ambush. He didn't tell anyone because he knew Droll would sniff out the plan, and Escanor's attack was the perfect distraction. Droll tries a dirty move, using his magic to sink the arena and take everyone hostage. He threatens to kill them all if Meliodas doesn't stop, but the captain of the 7 deadly sins doesn't care and continues his assault, tearing off Droll's other 2 arms. Gloxinia tries to take him down, but Meliodas reveals he knows about their tragic pasts, Gloxinia's loss and Droll's shattered pride. He understands their pain but warns them the moment they switch sides and join the demons, there was nothing left to talk about. That's when all hell breaks loose. The rest of the 10 commandments simply appear in the middle of the fight. Meliodas faces his brother Zeldris, but the guy is faster and rips Meliodas' arm off. When he tries to use his dark power to reattach it, Zeldris stops him, and Greyroad takes the opportunity to cast a spell that traps him. From there, it becomes a massacre. Derriere attacks with her combo star, a series of punches that get stronger with each hit, and Monspeed throws him into the sky to fry him with a fireball. Despite taking an absolute thrashing, Meliodas still manages to slash Monspeed's throat, but the situation is impossible. Zeldris declares this is their revenge. In a final effort, Meliodas prepares his ultimate move, Revenge Counter, but Estarossa appears and stops the attack with a single hand. Meliodas collapses, and Estarossa, with his foot on his chest, says this hurts him too because he loves him, and begins to crush him. The scene continues with Estarossa crushing Meliodas' chest as he screams in pain. Meanwhile, we find out that Gilfrost teleported everyone away, saving the crew's necks. Estarossa then drops a bombshell. Meliodas wasn't just a traitor, he was the former leader of the 10 Commandments, destined to be the next Demon King. His betrayal was what gave the goddess clan the excuse to start the holy war against the demons. Estarossa, who idolized his brother, is clearly suffering from this family drama. As Meliodas whispers an apology to Elizabeth, Melascula decides she'll finish the job by devouring his soul. But, out of the absolute blue, Bon appears among the commandments, snaps Melascula's neck, and destroys all her hearts with absurd speed. Estarossa's reaction? He thanks him. He says she deserved it for trying to steal Meliodas' soul without permission. Bizarre. Bon, full of swagger, says Meliodas is in no condition to fight and that he'll take on Estarossa himself. But Estarossa simply ignores him and plunges a sword into Meliodas' heart. He then explains that demons have 7 hearts, and, one by one, he begins to pierce all of them with different weapons.
Let me teach you something useful. We upper-level demons have a circulatory system of 7 hearts. You destroy them all, and no matter how strong they are, they'll die.
Bon panics and tries to attack, but Estarossa blasts him away with a simple gesture. With all 7 hearts destroyed, Estarossa declares Meliodas is dead and Britannia is theirs. At Leona's castle, everyone watches the scene in shock. Elizabeth asks to be taken there, finds Meliodas' lifeless body, and hugs him, crying and begging him to wake up. The scene cuts to a soldier telling Bon about sacrifices in the north, and Golgiaz, a runaway knight, ends up at the boar hut, where he finds Elizabeth serving beer as if nothing happened. What? We return to that weird scene at the boar hut. Golgiaz wakes up and tries to flee, but his growling stomach gives him away. Elizabeth, despite knowing who he is, serves him soup. After he leaves, she goes up to Meliodas' room and, holding his body, begs him to come back, saying she can't live without him. Suddenly, a holy knight appears and reveals himself. It's Zara Traz, the same one Hendrickson and Dreyfus killed 10 years ago. He explains that he was resurrected by Melascula, but the effect is temporary. This lights a spark of hope in Elizabeth, who thinks of Elaine. Zara Traz asks to see Meliodas, and by drawing symbols on his body, transports the 3 of them into a field of memories. It's like a trip back in time. They see their first meeting, with Meliodas arriving with baby Elizabeth in his arms and calling her my woman. Another memory shows Meliodas becoming a holy knight just so King Bartra could adopt Elizabeth. Then, we see Merlin confirming the prophecy of the 7 deadly sins, whom she had already chosen herself. The last memory is the strongest, Meliodas promising a young Elizabeth that he would always come back to her alive. Back in reality, Elizabeth's faith is renewed. He promised. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the universe, Meliodas is in purgatory, facing the Demon King himself. And in Leones, the 10 Commandments have arrived to wreak havoc. Bon, Gilthunder, and other holy knights face Estarossa, but lose all their strength. The reason? His commandment nullifies the power of anyone who feels hatred. That's when the most epic scene happens. Escanor approaches Estarossa, completely immune, and drops the line of the century.
Why should I bear any hatred towards someone who's obviously weaker than myself? All I feel is pity.
He feels no hatred, only pity. What a triumphant entrance. The Holy Knights try to flee from Frodron and Zeldris, but it's a terrible idea. The moment they turn their backs, they become Zeldris's puppets. Suddenly, everyone feels an insane wave of power coming from the castle. It's Escanor, the pure embodiment of pride, who appears before Estarossa while the other knights are paralyzed, just watching. Hauser doesn't get it, but Gil Thunder explains Escanor is unfazed because he's simply the most overpowered of the 7 deadly sins. Estarossa charges, thinking he has the upper hand, but Escanor counters with a punch that brings the commandment to his knees. Estarossa draws a sword, and Escanor begins to charge his power. The villain even tries to act nice, warning that the attack will destroy everyone behind him, but Escanor has a better idea. He hurls Estarossa like a bowling ball into a lake. Then, he unleashes so much power that the lake simply evaporates.
Followed by Pride Flare.
That monster! His move evaporated the whole lake in one blow!
Escanor hits Estarossa dead on, and when Zeldris tries to help, he puts even more force into the attack, sending both commandments flying in an explosion.
I will be the one to decide. Die.
Meanwhile, Zeldris' Zabi knights start attacking Hauser and Gil Thunder. To make matters worse, Monspeet and Derriere appear, telling everyone to surrender. Denzel exits the castle and sacrifices himself to summon a goddess, Nerobasta, but the goddess is a coward, refuses to fight, and tries to fly away. Derriere doesn't forgive the audacity and cuts the runaway in half. Elsewhere, Elizabeth, Zaratraz, and Hawk are on their way to Leones when Derriere and Monspeet find them. Derriere recognizes Elizabeth and lunges at her, but the princess uses magic out of nowhere that makes the demon's hand explode. When Derriere goes to attack again, she takes a punch and falls. Guess who's here? Meliodas, holding Elizabeth and apologizing for the wait. The captain's back. Elizabeth and Meliodas finally reunite, and she tells him she already knows about their past. He thanks her, and to show everything's back to normal, performs his routine inspection of her new look. The princess, surprisingly, is into it, but quickly corrects herself. Flustered, the piece is short-lived as Derriere reappears and punches Hawk's mom, who falls and crushes the boar hat. Meliodas doesn't let it slide. He grabs Derriere by the neck, slams her to the ground, and hits her with an elbow to the stomach. When Monspeet tries to help with a magic attack, Meliodas uses full counter and sends the power right back, seemingly disintegrating both demons. At the castle, Hendrickson confronts Frodron, vowing to reclaim Dreyfus's body, but then Greyroad shows up, bringing Jericho and Zeal as hostages. Her commandment is pacifism. Whoever kills in her presence has their lifespan stolen, but Merlin arrives in style, freezes the hostages, who have turned into eggs, and explains that, for her, time has simply stopped. Basically, she paused her own life to nullify the commandment. Genius. With the enemy neutralized, she traps Greyroad in a glass vial, like an insect. Zaratraz joins Hendrickson and sacrifices his own life to expel Frodron from Dreyfus's body. The light fades and Frodron appears in his original form, an ugly as sin monster. Dreyfus, now free, gets distracted by his son, and Frodron takes the opportunity to impale Hendrickson, but Dreyfus uses this opening to punch a hole through the demon's chest and destroy him. Thought it was over? Frodron isn't dead, and uses full size to become a giant. Just then, Meliodas arrives with a power level of 60,000, leaving everyone stunned. But there's a catch. He's different, with black eyes and a demon mark on his face.
It can't be. Is that really Sir Meliodas?
Things just got serious. Meliodas, now with a dark aura, tells Frodron it's time to end this farce. The giant demon attacks, but Meliodas rips his chest open like paper, delivering punches that tear holes through the enemy's body. Hauser is shocked, but Merlin explains it's to be expected. Meliodas' power is double Frodron's. In a flashback, we see it was Golther who told Frodron about Meliodas' betrayal 3,000 years ago. Back in the present, Frodron decides to self-destruct and take Leones with him. Merlin, always prepared, protects everyone with her perfect cube. In a desperate act, little Griamore runs and hugs the massive monster, begging him to stop. Touched by his memories with the boy, Fraudrin gives up the attack, but Meliodas, showing no emotion, delivers a punch that disintegrates the demon's upper body. Cold and calculating, Merlin then reveals the truth. Meliodas is cursed. Every time he dies, he comes back, but he loses a piece of his emotions, regressing to his most feared version. Later, Meliodas confesses to Elizabeth that he's afraid of becoming who he once was, but he has to do it to save her. The next day, the city of Leonis is entirely rebuilt, courtesy of Merlin, who worked all night. Bon and Meliodas make peace, and Griamore returns to his adult form with a kiss on the forehead from Veronica. The Sins gather and plan their next steps. The next target is Camelot. Zeldris, Estarossa, and other commandments are still in the area. In the final scenes, we see Jericho discovering she inherited her brother's ice powers, and Golther, freed from prison, drops the bomb that he was once one of the 10 commandments. Meliodas promises to reunite all 7 deadly sins, and Elizabeth vows to stay by his side forever. The war is far from over. We kick things off with Meliodas and Bon in full hero mode, saving a group of prisoners from some blue demons like it's nothing. Just another day at the office for them. Meanwhile, in Leonis, the gang is in post-battle reconstruction. Hauser and Griamore are working hard to rebuild, and Hauser is all hyped for the ceremony to choose the new Great Holy Knight, already betting on Dreyfus or Hendrickson. Griamore rains on his parade, reminding him that fixing buildings is easy. Fixing the people's morale, which is at an all-time low, is the hard part. Cut to Bon and Meliodas having a snack by the fire. Bon notes that Meliodas' strength is on a whole other level, and Meliodas remembers Elizabeth's promise to stay by his side no matter what. Bon reinforces their friendship, basically saying, "I've got your back." The next step, retaking Camelot. Then we meet Pelio, a kid who discovers his father is turning people over to the demons to protect their village. Enraged, he runs off to handle things himself. He tries to play the hero against an ochre demon but gets his butt kicked. His father and the other villagers try to help but get beaten down too. But just when all seems lost, boom! The 7 deadly sins arrive, Avengers style. The ensuing fight is a spectacle. Meliodas and Bon dispatch some demons like they're flies. Escanor doesn't even feel the punches from a copper demon and slices the guy in half with his sacred treasure. Merlin runs circles around another, and Golther makes a demon knock itself out. To top it all off, Bon finishes off the final boss in spectacular fashion. After Elizabeth heals everyone, they depart. Back in Leones, Hawk is pissed because he wanted to do the grand reveal of the new Boar Hat Tavern, but Bon and Meliodas spoiled the surprise. At the ceremony, Bartra announces the new Great Holy Knight, and to everyone's surprise, the chosen one is Hauser himself. And to top it all off, King and Diane end up going to the bath together. Awkward. The awkward scene in the bath continues, with King apologizing to Diane. They talk and sadly recall Meliodas' death, wondering why the Fairy King's forest wasn't attacked. King explains it's because of a highly selective magic barrier. Suddenly, things get weird. All the fairies start dancing out of nowhere in a hypnotic trance, and when the music stops, King and Diane are gone, vanished. They wake up in front of none other than Gloxinia and Droll, 2 of the 10 commandments. King and Diane brace for a fight, but it's a massacre.
Disappointing, acted Fairy King.
They don't stand a chance. Gloxinia even mocks King, saying it's bizarre for a Fairy King to still not have wings. But wait, this isn't an execution, it's a test. Gloxinia and Droll explain they were once the Fairy King and the Giant King and fought against the demons. They made a difficult choice in the past and want King and Diane to prove whether that choice was the right one. It's a high-stakes training. If they fail, it's over. They accept the challenge and bam! King and Diane wake up in different bodies. It's like a Freaky Friday scenario, but Holy War edition. King is in Gloxinia's body, and Diane is in Droll's. To make things even weirder, Meliodas appears, alive and well, but he doesn't recognize the names King or Diane, and right after, Elizabeth appears, with goddess wings. King figures it out. They've traveled 3,000 years back in time, to an era before Gloxinia and Droll joined the 10 Commandments. Their time trip drops them right into a horror scene. demons slaughtering humans. And to make matters worse, one of the original 10 commandments, a guy named Calmadios, shows up for a fight. The fight against Calmadios begins, and Diane and King get a surprise. In the bodies of Droll and Gloxinia, they are absurdly strong and can go toe-to-toe with the commandment. Meanwhile, in the present, Helbram tries to wake King, with no success. Gloxinia explains that their souls are on this time-traveling journey and will only return when the test is over. Back in the 3,000-year-old brawl, Meliodas helps push back Calmadios, and Elizabeth, she simply asks the other demons to leave, and they do. The woman has a way with words. In the midst of the chaos, they meet Roll, a human who's a dead ringer for Bon and who joins their group. The crew heads to the base of Stigma, the alliance between the goddess, fairy, and giant clans. There they meet the leader, Ludociel, one of the 4 archangels. The guy is pure hatred and only wants to exterminate all demons, to the utter disappointment of Elizabeth, who dreamed of peace. In a private conversation, Roll realizes Meliodas is a demon but trusts him anyway. Meanwhile, King senses a sinister energy and learns from Gerhard, Gloxinia's sister, about Ludociel's sick plan. He used thousands of captured demons as live bait to lure the enemy army. When the demon army arrives, Elizabeth, in her innocence, goes to try and negotiate peace. Derriere, one of the commandments, even considers it, but on one condition: hand over Meliodas. Obviously, Elizabeth refuses, but it was all a trap. Ludociel thanks Elizabeth for buying him time and reveals a giant sphere of light containing all the missing demons, and then he simply annihilates all of them, including Derriere's sister. Blind with rage, Derriere attacks Elizabeth with everything she's got.
So is this the way your people handle things?
Please, I don't.
And to end the episode in total chaos, 2 more archangels appear in the sky, ready for war. Here, the archangels Tarmiel and Sariel appear to heal Elizabeth, complaining that the 10 commandments don't know how to treat a lady. They even make a bet on how long the demons will last. Spoiler, the bet is in seconds. The archangels unleash an attack called Omega Arc.
I summon Omega Arc!
Which is basically a deadly light show that wipes almost all the demons off the map. Garland, seeing things have gone south, yells for everyone to retreat, but some survive, and Monspeed appears by surprise to attack the angels. Derriere also joins the fray and unleashes her famous punch combo on Tarmiel. The problem, the guy regenerates like it's nothing. Garland tries to slice him in half, but he just pulls himself back together, like the T-1000. Apparently, archangels are tough to kill. While the beatdown is happening, Ludociel, the head archangel, is disappointed that only the weaklings were defeated, but the Ludociel we see right after is actually Gulther in disguise, who tricks the guard Nerobasta to get to the gate of the celestial realm. There, he finds Melascula and learns about the archangel's plan. Back at the fight, the commandments are taking a serious beating. Monspeed is cut in half, and Derriere loses an arm trying to land a punch. When all seems lost, they make a drastic decision. They rip out 6 of their 7 hearts to become giant, out-of-control beasts called Indura. It's total berserker mode. The creatures turn the tables and start laying a smackdown on Ludociel. Elsewhere, Meliodas finally finds Elizabeth and, in a heroic act, passes through a barrier that burns him just to reach her. But the peace is short-lived because Elizabeth appears on the battlefield and tells Ludociel, "Don't worry, I've got this." The battle rages on, and Meliodas explains that the Indura are basically a ticking time bomb. They fight until their life force runs out and they die. But Elizabeth has other plans. She doesn't want to kill anyone and tries to purify Monspeed and Derriere with her light, but the spell backfires and the darkness within them resists, making them even more monstrous. Ludociel, having no patience for this peace and love vibe, tries to kill the demons, but Meliodas gets in his way and says, "You shall not pass." Elizabeth's attitude ends up convincing the other 2 archangels, Sariel and Tarmiel, who decide to help with the purification. Together, they manage to bring Monspeed and Derriere back to normal, but the effort causes Elizabeth to faint. Ludociel, being the villain he is, tries to attack the 2 unconscious demons, but King and Dian stop him, calling him a coward. Meanwhile, Ludociel tries to contact the guard Nerobasta, who wakes from Gulther's spell just in time to see him and Melascula turning the celestial gate into a portal to the demon realm. And it doesn't stop there. Roll, a human, leads a surprise rebellion against Stigma, killing everyone to ensure the demon portal is opened. King and Dian sense the trouble and rush back, but on their way, they find Gulther, the doll. They're confused as this Golter seems different. To make matters worse, they discover they've been tricked. The portal doesn't lead to the demon realm, but to the demon prison, and out of it steps the original Golter, in the flesh, for the first time in 500 years. He couldn't care less about the war. He just wants his freedom back, like a prisoner escaping from Alcatraz. The original Golter, newly freed, teleports near King and Diane and explains the whole situation. The doll they know is like an avatar he used to see the world from inside the prison. He also reveals that the human rebellion wasn't his plan and that his true goal is to end the Holy War once and for all. In a moving twist, the original Golter grants his doll free will. Their farewell is heartbreaking, with the doll crying about not wanting to be left alone.
Please, don't go. Don't leave me behind.
As a parting gift, the original Golter restores Diane's lost memories, finally. Meanwhile, King rushes back to the tower, fearing history will repeat itself, and he won't be able to protect Gerhard. He finds Roll holding her, badly wounded. King, blinded by rage, attacks, assuming the worst. But at the last second, he remembers Bon and manages to stop his attack. It turns out Roll was protecting Gerhard and even told her his tragic story, but King's pause is for nothing. The Gloxinia of the past appears, and without a second thought, kills Roll. At that moment, King wakes up in the present. It was all a test, and he passed because he made a different choice than Gloxinia, who, in the past, gave in to hatred and became one of the 10 Commandments. Diane, worried, decides to go after King, but an insane amount of energy explodes from the tower. Golter warns that his executor has arrived. Seconds later, Zeldris appears, looking like he means business, ready to start another fight. In this episode, things start off hot. Golter and Diane, who's still in Droll's body, come face to face with Zeldris. The guy is basically the Demon King's representative and is there to capture Golter on his father's orders. Golter knows he'll need all his magic to escape, but before he can do anything, Diane steps in. She offers to fight Zeldris so he can end the Holy War as quickly as possible, but even with all of Droll's power, Diane can't win. Zeldris has a bizarre ability that seals her magic and defeats her easily. Seeing that Droll is a tough giant, Zeldris makes him an offer. Either die right there or join the 10 Commandments. He even throws it in Droll's face that he knows he was always an outcast among the giants. Meanwhile, in the present, King is desperate because Diane won't wake up. Droll explains that his motivation for joining the demons was complicated. Abandoning the battlefield was a dishonor worse than death. The test was to find out what the right decision was. King realizes that no matter what Diane chooses, she won't come back. King cries, thinking he's lost Diane forever, but suddenly, she wakes up. Droll, shocked, asks what she chose. Her answer? I just ran away. Simple as that. Right after, she grabs King, gives him a big kiss, and tells him she loves him. King wakes up thinking it was a dream, but Diane appears and confirms it was all real. She got her memory back and has always loved him. The two kiss again, and out of nowhere, small fairy wings sprout from King's back. They reunite with the rest of the 7 deadly sins in Leones. The gang is shocked to see Meliodas alive. Diane tells them she got her memory back, leaving Golter completely confused. Then King Bartra appears with a heart-shaped item, and Golter freaks out and runs off. Meliodas then declares the 4th law of the sins. If one of them is in trouble, the others become one to help, and so the whole gang jumps off the tower after Golter. The hunt for Golter begins, and Meliodas drops a bombshell. Golter is actually a doll. He was created by a mage so powerful that even the Demon King respected him. This mage was the commandment of selflessness, which erased the memories and emotions of anyone with selfish desires. Because of this, the Demon King imprisoned the mage, who created the Golter doll to be his eyes and ears in the outside world. He even based the doll's appearance on the woman he loved, but made him male, so he wouldn't have carnal desires. Meanwhile, a confused Golter decides to use a technique to erase all his own memories. This throws him into a flashback from 45 years ago. He wakes up in a cave and meets Princess Nadia. She's incredibly kind and curious about him. Golter discovers he's a doll with no memories, and Nadia, who is in frail health and lives through books, is fascinated. excited. He even shows her his powers by changing his hair, which causes her to faint. Gunther takes her back to the castle, and her brother Bartra lets him stay close, disguised as a maid. The two become inseparable. Gunther realizes that Nadia is dying, and in a moment of pure emotion, they kiss, but their joy is short-lived. Nadia dies in his arms. Desperate, Gunther rips out his own magical heart and tries to place it in her to revive her. The guards arrive, think he killed her, and beat him. He is sentenced to death by fire, and at that moment he decides that having a heart is too painful and that he'd rather forget everything. Back in the present, Diane stops him from erasing his memories. Merlin appears and reveals the truth. The magical heart never had a soul. Gunther's soul was always inside him. With that, Gunther's original memories and powers return. Merlin explains that the heart was just a memento, a comfort for a son who suffered for being a doll. Now, with the team complete again, Bon is already making plans. The celebration is on the captain. The episode opens with one of Merlin's relatives spying on Camelot, now occupied by demons, when they are discovered by Zeldris. The demon uses the creature as a channel to cast a curse directly on Merlin. She manages to recover just enough to attend the Seven Deadly Sins reunion party, but it's clear something's wrong. Escanor, ever observant, overhears her telling Meliodas that she can't lose Arthur. Meanwhile, Elizabeth, connecting the dots, asks Meliodas about the other girls with her name that he's known. He remains silent. The next morning, Merlin is burning up with a fever. When Elizabeth tries to heal her, she ends up in a telepathic encounter with Zeldris. That's when he reveals the dark truth. Elizabeth is a cursed goddess.
Meliodas is still clinging to the cursed goddess. You're tormenting my older brother.
The curse is a terrible cycle. She reincarnates, meets Meliodas, falls in love, regains the memories of her past lives, and then dies. This has already happened dozens of times. Zeldris, being the villain that he is, forces the memories back, telling her she needs to see just how sinful she has been. As soon as the memories return, Merlin recovers. Elizabeth is initially thrilled to remember all the time she spent with Meliodas, but the joy is short-lived. The Sins plan to liberate Camelot, which puts Bon in an impossible situation. To break the city's barrier, they need to kill Melascula, but her spell is the only thing keeping Elaine alive. Elizabeth's condition worsens. She begins to be overwhelmed by the tragic memories of millennia, her eyes glowing with the orange color of the goddesses, and she collapses. It is then that Meliodas, in sheer desperation, reveals the rest of the curse. Once all her memories return, Elizabeth will die in 3 days. The clock has started ticking, so Meliodas decides to come clean and reveal the secret he's been keeping for 3,000 years. He and Elizabeth were cursed by the Demon King and the Supreme Deity, all because they fell in love despite being from rival clans. It's like a supernatural Romeo and Juliet. The curse is cruel. He is immortal and cannot die, while Elizabeth reincarnates every time she dies, forcing him to watch her death over and over again in an endless loop of suffering. After the Holy War, Meliodas wandered aimlessly, completely lost, until he found a reincarnation of Elizabeth, who was a primitive human with no memories. They fell in love again. But then her eye gained the goddess symbol, and the nightmare began all over again. As soon as she regains her memories, the countdown to her death begins. She has 3 days to live. So far, he has met 107 Elizabeths. To break this curse, Meliodas teamed up with Merlin. Their only lead is Zeldris, who has access to the Demon King's power. But to get to him, they needed to reopen the coffin where the 10 Commandments were sealed. The problem was that the demon Fraudrin was resurrected, killed Liz, the reincarnation at the time, and tried to use her blood to free his comrades, but failed. Blinded by rage, Meliodas simply wiped the city of Danafor off the map. But in the midst of the destruction, he found a newborn baby, the Elizabeth we know today. The trouble kicks off with Meliodas going after Zeldris with everything he's got. But, plot twist, Zeldris was just an illusion. Melascula appears and reveals that it was all a bait to capture Meliodas. And it works. She kidnaps the captain and takes him to a dark and macabre city. The other Sins chase after her, entering a scene straight out of a horror movie, filled with scattered skeletons. Obviously, the skeletons rise and attack. While the Sins are struggling, Meliodas reappears and unleashes his Hellblaze on the skeletons, but the spell backfires. Instead of killing them, his dark power acts like an energy drink for the monsters, making them even stronger. That's when King and Diane show they weren't just slacking off and used their new powers to clear the area, but the fight isn't over. The monsters' souls enter Diane's body and possess her. She basically hulks out and starts attacking her own friends. The group avoids fighting back to keep from hurting Diane. Gunther even tries to enter her mind, but it's no use. When all seems lost, Elizabeth emerges like a hero and uses her her powers to exorcise the demons from Dien, saving the day. It seems that, in the end, there might still be a chance to break the curse. After Elizabeth saves Dien, Melascula is pissed that her plan failed, but she sees a chance to get rid of the princess, while Meliodas is still trapped in his cocoon of darkness. Elizabeth uses her powers to heal everyone, and then drops a bombshell. She remembers Merlin calling her sis, leaving everyone floored. Melascula can't stand the scene and appears, revealing her true form, a giant, monstrous snake. She attacks Bond, but Elaine, who is back to life, throws herself in front to save him. With this act of love, she finally awakens her fairy wings. Suddenly, an earthquake. It's Meliodas, who has escaped the cocoon and activated his assault mode.
Tell me, do you even understand what I'm saying?
Silence! You're so insolent for a base human.
His old, feared version as the leader of the 10 Commandments. He's not messing around. Seeing this, Escanor summons his sacred treasure and prepares for the fight everyone's been waiting for, and Merlin creates a magic cube so they can fight at full power without destroying everything. While the two titans trade blows, the other sins face Melascula. Bond tries to find her last heart, but the snake is clever. Dien and King, with their powers at maximum, manage to defeat her. Elaine prepares for the final sacrifice, asking them to kill Melascula for good, but Elizabeth intervenes. Instead of killing her, she uses a magic that purifies the demonic miasma, turning Melascula back into a harmless little snake. The scene cuts back to the main fight, with Meliodas plunging his sword into Escanor's stomach. The fight between Escanor and Meliodas seems to be over, with Escanor on the ground, but Elizabeth is desperate, begging Merlin to let her out of the perfect cube so she can talk to Meliodas. Merlin refuses, because the guy has become a monster and would kill everyone there. Suddenly, Escanor gets up ready for another round. Meliodas warns him to stay down, but Escanor attacks with a super slash and ends up taking a sword to the gut that brings him to his knees. Golther measures their power levels, and the conclusion is obvious. Meliodas is on another level.
He's at 142,000. It's a matter of time before he kills Escanor.
Like a final boss on hard mode, it's his original power as the leader of the 10 Commandments. The beatdown continues, but Merlin reveals she has an ace up her sleeve. At high noon, for a single minute, Escanor becomes the One, a practically invincible force, and it happens just like that. Meliodas, all cocky, watches Escanor grow gigantic, engulfed in flames, and launches his strongest attack, Divine Thousands Flashes. But to Escanor, it's just a scratch. With a single hand chop, like a karate strike, he knocks Meliodas out.
Holy sword, Escanor.
Game over. The group rushes to help, but Merlin stops Elizabeth from healing the captain, otherwise the fight would just start again. Escanor, full of pride, says he can take Meliodas down as many times as needed, but Merlin flicks him and reveals he was just pretending it didn't hurt. Meanwhile, in Camelot, Arthur Pendragon is leading a human resistance against the demons, like a medieval version of the Star Wars rebels. He needs to find the sword Excalibur to turn the tide, but Zeldris is also after the sword and can't pull it from the stone. To make matters worse, he gets a call from his father, the Demon King, with a bizarre order: rescue Meliodas, his traitorous brother. The Demon King orders Zeldris to rescue Meliodas, and Zeldris is like, why would I help a traitor? But his father explains that Meliodas has already reverted to his old self, and that Zeldris will be able to break Elizabeth's curse if he helps. Reluctantly, he agrees and tries to reassemble the 10 Commandments, but the group has disbanded. It's like trying to get an old band back together. Galand has turned to stone, Grey Road and Melascula have been captured, Estarossa is in a coma, and Fraudrin is gone. The ones left, Derriere and Monspeet, have retired and are living a quiet life in the countryside. As for Gloxinia and Droll, they just say no thanks and ask to leave the group. The marks of the commandments even vanish from them. Just when Zeldris is thinking of doing it all himself, two new guys show up, Chandler and Cusack, the original masters of Meliodas and Zeldris. Think of them as the evil Yoda and Obi-Wan. Chandler is completely obsessed with young Master Meliodas, and is furious to learn he's with Elizabeth. He doesn't think twice and flies off to rescue his pupil. At the Boar Hat, night falls out of nowhere. It's Chandler, who appears and immediately goes after Elizabeth, calling her a sinful goddess. He shatters Merlin's perfect cube, and when she tries to fight back, he uses full counter, which he taught to Meliodas, and turns Merlin into a little girl. The guy is a hacker who's broken the system and is wrecking everything. He shrinks Dien, makes meteors rain down, and corners everyone. Since Escanor is useless at night, only King and Golther Golther are left, combining their powers to launch a final attack, Celestial Arrow. Chandler, full of confidence, says that King and Golther's attack won't work because he also knows how to use full counter. Golther launches the arrow, Chandler reflects it, but it was just an illusion. The real Celestial Arrow hits him square on. But, in a plot twist worthy of anime, Chandler also used an illusion to counterattack and wounds King. The real attack didn't even phase him. Then Chandler casts a spell on Golther called Absolute Order, which basically forbids him from attacking. With Golther out of commission, he goes after Elizabeth, but Diane protects her using heavy metal. The fight turns to chaos. Bon appears and holds Chandler from behind so King can attack them both, since Bon is immortal. Chandler breaks free by blowing up Bon's body and continues the fight. In a bizarre and brilliant moment, Hawk simply licks the curse mark off Chandler's hand, erasing it. With that, Golther is back in the game and attacks Chandler, while Elizabeth heals everyone. With the full team back, they finally manage to take the demon down, but the celebration is short-lived. Golther collapses, as the curse wasn't truly removed. Back in Camelot, Zeldris already knew this would happen. Back on the battlefield, Chandler gets up, but now transformed. He basically activates his "this isn't even my final form" mode and warns the Sins that they're totally screwed. The newly transformed Chandler isn't messing around. He pulls a giant sword from his cane and charges the Sins. King activates hero mode, uses increase, and tells the others to run, vowing to hold the monster off for as long as he can, even if it costs him his life. He says a tense goodbye to Diane, but Chandler's power is absurd, and with a single strike, he shatters Chastiefall as if it were a twig. When all seems lost, who shows up to save the day? Gloxinia and Droll. The two regret betraying Meliodas and Elizabeth and want to redeem themselves. They send King and Diane far away to safety at the Boar Hat, essentially passing the torch to the new generation. Gloxinia and Droll try to trap Chandler, but he breaks free and the fight gets ugly. The demon calls them traitors, and they reply that they are no longer commandments or kings. The battle is violent, and in the end, Chandler simply massacres the two former kings. In their final moments, they name King the new fairy king and Diane the new giant queen.
And once those wings are fully evolved, I'm sure that one day you'll become the most powerful fairy king ever.
The queen of the giant shield.
Back at the tavern, Elizabeth wakes Merlin up and finds out about the sacrifice. The mood is heavy, and to make things worse, Meliodas' negative energy is bringing everyone down. But the big surprise comes when they go to check on the captain. He's awake, fully recovered, but the vibe is off. Meliodas reveals that he's regained all his memories and that he's taking Elizabeth away. And then comes the bombshell. His father, the Demon King, has been spying on everything through Hawk's eyes the whole time, like an evil big brother. To top it off, Meliodas says he needs to break Elizabeth's curse, and for that reason, the 7 deadly sins are officially disbanded. The band is over. After Meliodas took off with Elizabeth, the mood among the sins is like a funeral. Merlin throws a bucket of cold water on everyone, explaining that there's not much they can do since the captain's emotions are trapped in purgatory. That's when Hawk remembers Meliodas calling him the Demon King. Intrigued, Merlin examines the pig's eyes and discovers something bizarre. He's a sort of portal to purgatory. Diane, ever the optimist, suggests using Hawk to go there and rescue Meliodas' emotions, but Merlin bursts her bubble, explaining that her own father went to purgatory for a mere minute and came back old and traumatized. It's a hellish place, impossible to survive, inhabited by wild creatures and the Demon King himself. But then Bon, our favorite immortal, volunteers. Being immortal, he's the only one who could handle it and is determined to bring his best friend back. Meanwhile, in Camelot, Meliodas arrives to Zeldris and announces, "I'm going to become the new Demon King." Zeldris doesn't like the idea, and suddenly Estarossa, who has woken from a coma, appears, saying he'll give up the throne in exchange for Elizabeth. Meliodas doesn't even negotiate, he shows who's boss and shuts both his brothers up. Then, he whispers something in Zeldris' ear, who magically agrees to help. The plan? Absorb all 10 commandments. Back at the tavern, Merlin opens the portal in Hawk's eyes, and Bond says goodbye to Elaine, promising to return. He dives into the unknown, heading for purgatory. To end the episode with a bang, Elizabeth rejects Meliodas' plan, lands a solid knockout punch on him, and escapes, determined to join the Sins to stop this madness. Following his brother's orders, Zeldris goes to the Boar Hat to retrieve Melascula's commandment from Merlin, but the mage, who's no fool, wants to negotiate. She reveals her true form, and Zeldris recognizes her as the legendary daughter of Belia Luin. The two ascend to the sky to talk in private, but Merlin, ever the schemer, leaves a strand of hair behind that acts as a bug for the others to listen in on the gossip. The episode then takes us on a side quest. Princess Margaret, along with Hendrickson and Dreyfus, is trying to rescue Gilthunder from the witch Vivian. Along the way, Margaret hears a mysterious voice at an altar and makes a deal to save her beloved. Dreyfus senses it's a trap, but it's too late. Margaret becomes the vessel for Ludo Ciel, one of the 4 archangels of the goddess clan. We also see that other holy knights are being possessed by goddesses, indicating their return. Meanwhile, Gilthunder is trapped in a floating temple with Vivian, who is clingier than glue. She goes so far as to suggest they have children and name a daughter Margaret. The level of weirdness is off the charts. Suddenly, a portal opens and Ludo Ciel, in Margaret's body, pierces Vivian's neck with an attack. Back to the negotiation, Zeldris recalls the legend of Merlin. She tricked both the supreme deity and the demon king, gaining immunity to the magic of both. The woman is a first-class strategist. Merlin tries to trade the commandment for Elizabeth or King Arthur, but Zeldris refuses. The final deal is, he frees everyone affected by his commandment of piety. Zeldris holds up his end of the bargain, expecting betrayal from her, but the one who attacks him by surprise is Ludo Ciel, who arrives with a massive explosion. Right after seeing Ludo Ciel attack Zeldris, Merlin simply pops up at the boar hat. King asks what happened, and she explains that one of the archangels decided to ruin the negotiation with a good old-fashioned brawl. She warns that if they plan to do something, now is the time. Up in the Celestial Palace, Ludo Ciel is ecstatic in Margaret's body, thinking he's the bee's knees. Hendrickson is sucking up to him, thinking they now stand a chance against the demons. But Dreyfus isn't playing games and gives him a lecture, reminding him that Margaret and Gilthunder are in a super complicated situation. Gilthunder, confused, asks why Ludo Ciel chose Margaret, and the archangel replies that she offered herself. Desperate, Gil tries to call out to her, but it's no use. Suddenly, Zeldris recovers and unleashes a Dies Irae, an absurd blast of power that seems to wipe Ludo Ciel and the rest of them off the map. Meanwhile, in Camelot, Chandler realizes Elizabeth has slipped past Meliodas' watch and, without wasting a second, creates minions from his own flesh to go after her. The Sins are helping to evacuate the kingdom, and Diane even playfully scares some villagers. But the party's over when one of Chandler's minions attacks Elizabeth, cutting her forehead. Diane crushes the creature and takes the princess to Hawk Mama, and they teleport away. On their way to Leonis, Elizabeth thanks everyone and asks for their strength to stop Meliodas from becoming the new demon king. Upon arriving, King Bartra notices her goddess eyes, and soon after, Ludo Ciel, Tarmiel, and Sariel appear, each in a host's body. Elizabeth, though pissed at Ludo Ciel, swallows her pride and forges a pact with Stigma to end the holy war once and for all. That night, Ludo Ciel reveals to Hendrickson that the 4th archangel, Mayao, was killed by Estarossa of the 10 Commandments. The episode closes with Elizabeth and her father having a touching moment, where she asks for the honor of being his daughter for 2 more days, as the curse is nearly complete. We meet Arthur, who is trying to reach Camelot Castle, but seems to be stuck in a video game glitch. No matter how far he walks, he always ends up back in the same place. He figures out he's in an illusion, courtesy of a mage named Peronia. The next day in Leonis, Merlin is fixing Golther, who requests a very specific upgrade that leaves the mage surprised and concerned. Outside, Escanor wants to know what Merlin thinks of him, but Hawk advises him to just ask her directly. At the castle, Ludo Ciel senses Escanor's familiar presence and confronts him. And here comes the plot twist. Escanor's power isn't a curse, but a divine grace called Sunshine, which belonged to Ludo Ciel's younger brother, Mael. Ludo Ciel warns that using this power will destroy Escanor's human body, but he basically replies with an "I don't give a damn," saying he'll fight to the end. The two end up reaching an understanding. Elsewhere, Estarossa finds Galland still petrified. Instead of helping, he simply kills him and absorbs his commandment. What a pow, huh? Back in Camelot, Arthur's cat finds the mage Peronia and without mercy, devours her alive, breaking the illusion. With the path now clear, Arthur finally enters the castle, but is detected by Zildris and Cusack. Cath distracts the demons to buy Arthur time to get Excalibur. When Meliodas appears and tells him to leave, Arthur feels betrayed, draws the holy sword, and attacks. He starts holding his own against Cusack, Chandler, and even Zeldris, showing impressive mastery.
I told you before, don't underestimate humans. Dead Striker!
Far away, Merlin explains to the other Sins that Arthur isn't just any boy. He is the child of hope, chosen by Excalibur to one day lead all of Britannia, a true king among kings. Arthur finds out the hard way that Chandler and Cusack survived his attack. They were just testing Excalibur's abilities. Arthur keeps fighting, but the sword becomes too heavy, and his body starts to fail. Cusack explains that while Arthur is powerful, he doesn't know how to wield the sword properly. Just as Cusack is about to finish him off, Merlin arrives in the nick of time, freezing the demon and saving Arthur. She exchanges a few words with Meliodas and teleports with Arthur and Cath to the Boar Hat. But the victory is short-lived. Even from a distance, Cusack activates his ability Resonant and forces Arthur to take Excalibur and plunge the sword into his own heart. Arthur dies, lamenting that he couldn't live up to Merlin's expectations. It's a heartbreaking moment. Merlin reveals that she sensed Arthur's immense potential since she first met him, and comforted by Elizabeth, she cries for the first time in 430 years. Escanor overhears everything in secret. The next day, the mood is one of war. They devise a three-pronged plan: a defense force in Leonas, a search and destroy force on the road to Camelot, and an assault force to invade Meliodas' lair and stop him from becoming the Demon King. Meanwhile, in Camelot, Meliodas begins the ritual to absorb 5 commandments, ready to achieve his goal. Back in Leones, the Sins prepare. King tries to propose to Diane again, but Escanor kills the mood, thinking it's not the time. With a fiery speech from Ludociel, the Holy Knights, powered up by the Archangels, march to the battle that will decide everyone's future. The Holy War has finally begun in earnest. Hauser and the Holy Knights are brawling with the demon army. In the midst of the chaos, Deathpierce is in berserker mode. He rips off a demon's head, takes a punch that would shake a building, and doesn't even feel it. Gulther, ever the observer, immediately realizes that he and the other knights are under the effect of a spell called Breath of Bless. Meanwhile, in a nearby village, a young girl named Annie brings food to Monspeet and Derriere, who are trying to live a quiet, retired life. But their peace is short-lived. Estarossa shows up, already knowing the 2 commandments are hiding there. Back on the battlefield, King and Diane lend a hand, but the ones who really clear the area are the Archangels Sariel and Tarmiel, with their arc attacks that disintegrate the demon horde. As the dust settles, Deathpierce is overjoyed, thanking Ludociel for the blessing. That's when Elizabeth throws a bucket of cold water on everyone, revealing that Breath of Bless is actually a form of brainwashing to turn soldiers into smiling kamikazes. The Archangels confirm the story and add that it was Elizabeth herself who protected everyone and healed the wounded. At the cabin, the conversation between Derriere and Monspeet is interrupted in the worst way possible. Estarossa appears and kills Annie right in front of them. He tries to absorb the girl's soul, but Monspeet uses his power, Trickstar, to swap her soul with another object. Estarossa goes after the 2 of them, wanting their commandments. He even manages to catch Monspeet, but the mage mocks him for barely being able to handle a single commandment. When Estarossa is about to counterattack, Derriere warns it's useless, as Monspeet is the master of Hellblaze. Pretending to be defeated, Estarossa grabs Derriere. In the blink of an eye, Monspeet switches places with her, taking the fatal blow.
There's something that I've always wanted to tell you.
Breath, he sets himself on fire and launches Derriere far away, leaving her flying through the air, screaming, not understanding what he had wanted to confess to her. Right after Monspeet's sacrifice, Derriere lands in the middle of the battle, leaving everyone stunned. She basically admits she's there because she has nowhere else to run. Deathpierce, still seeking revenge for Denzel's death, tries to attack, but his sword shatters against her body as if it were made of glass. The conversation is interrupted by the party crasher of the hour, Estarossa. He arrives and and traps everyone with his spell, the Wicked Hound. He's thrilled to see Elizabeth without Meliodas' protection, but the princess shows she's not messing around and sends him flying with an arc attack. This is the cue for Sariel and Tarmiel to step in. They go after Estarossa, knowing their graces protect them from the commandment of love. Meanwhile, Elizabeth frees everyone from the fiery prison, and Diane reveals she protected the group with her earth magic. The archangels then combine their powers and trap Estarossa in a dimension that's a mix of a hurricane and an ocean, a true divine blender. They're already claiming victory, but in true anime villain fashion, Estarossa appears behind them with a new look and a smug attitude. He admits he's not strong enough yet, and then absorbs Monspeet's commandment. With this sinister upgrade, his appearance changes, becoming terrifyingly similar to Meliodas in his assault mode, and to top it all off, he drops the bombshell no one saw coming. I am Meliodas.
You simply have to keep your mouth shut and die. Now perish at the hands of this Meliodas.
We enter Esterossa's mind and discover the whole drama. He was always Meliodas' #1 fan, but also had a massive crush on Elizabeth. His jealousy grew when his brother started dating the goddess. Back in the present, now powered up, he claims he always wanted to be like his brother and has finally succeeded. Meanwhile, in Leones, Estarossa is in full Terminator mode, defeating the Holy Knights and even the Archangels as if they were nothing. He approaches Elizabeth and talks about their secret place, which confuses the princess, who wonders how he knows about it. Then the power goes to his head, literally. Estarossa starts losing control of the commandments as he remembers Meliodas saying he could never have Elizabeth. He freaks out, turns into a mass of dark matter, and attacks everyone, even strangling Elizabeth herself. To save everyone, she surrenders and agrees to go with him. With the crisis resolved, or at least postponed, the heroes regroup. Sariel and Tarmiel explain they need to abandon their human vessels to fight at full power. Derriere offers to help rescue Elizabeth, and King defends her presence on the team. Elsewhere, Merlin's team, with Escanor, Ludociel, and others, prepares to invade Camelot and stop Meliodas from becoming the Demon King. The mission is clear: either convince Meliodas to give up, or they'll have to eliminate him. The episode turns into a whirlwind of events. Bond continues his search in Purgatory. The rescue team, now with Gunther tagging along uninvited, follows Estarossa, and Estarossa himself takes Elizabeth to the ruins of a floating island. And in the midst of it all, Meliodas' emotions finally awaken in Purgatory, ready to come home. In Purgatory, a lone, fox-shaped soul wanders aimlessly, looking like a lost animal in the middle of nowhere. Upon reaching a lake of lava, it starts having flashbacks of the Fairy King's forest and the woman he loves, Elaine. Suddenly, the soul reverts to being Bond, who realizes he almost became a cursed spirit. He then screams for Meliodas, desperate, not knowing how long he's been trapped in this hell. Meanwhile, in Leones, the rescue team, composed of King, Tarmiel, Sariel, and Derriere, follows Elizabeth's trail. What they don't know is that Gunther is secretly following them, with some mysterious plan in mind. The chase ends at the ruins of a celestial theater, where a completely deranged Estarossa is about to kill Elizabeth.
Stay away from her. Elizabeth is mine.
Without a second thought, the group attacks him to save the princess. Back in Camelot, the task force of Merlin, Escanor, Ludociel, still in Margaret's body, Gil Thunder, and Hendrickson enters the sphere of darkness created by Meliodas. The Archangel warns that the only way out is to kill Meliodas, but Merlin, always the voice of reason, reminds them they can try to talk and change his mind. Inside, Zeldris, Cusack, and Chandler are already waiting for them. The demons activate their battle modes, knowing their enemies are tough nuts to crack. Ludociel is even excited to finally face Zeldris. The fight begins, but Merlin's spells don't even tickle the demons. In the midst of the chaos, Hendrickson throws himself in front to protect Ludociel, more concerned with keeping Margaret from getting hurt. Back in Purgatory, Bond continues his search for Meliodas. He fights some souls and, after falling off a cliff, ends up attracting a giant, aggressive dragon soul. The two fight for decades. During a moment of rest, Bond talks about his plans and how he wants to see Elaine again. He hears a familiar voice, and when he opens his eyes, he sees that the dragon was actually Meliodas' emotions. Upon seeing his best friend, Meliodas breaks down and cries on his shoulder. Meliodas explains to Bond that his emotions were locked away in Purgatory by the Demon King himself, who wants to forcibly make him his heir. Now reunited, the two start hunting creatures to survive, and Bond shows he's completely adapted to the place, enduring fire and ice like it's nothing. The guys become a true post-apocalyptic survivor. In the middle of their journey, they run into none other than Wild, Hawk's older brother. He drops a bombshell. The Demon King kidnapped his younger brother, Mild, our beloved Hawk, to use him as a security camera to spy on Meliodas. Shocked by the news, Wild joins the duo on their mission to find the exit from Purgatory, which, to make matters worse, is guarded by the Demon King himself. Meanwhile, in Camelot, the fight rages on. Merlin, the group's brainiac, analyzes Zeldris' technique, Ominous Nebula. Basically, it's a vortex of darkness that sucks in anyone who gets close and repels them with a near-divine counterattack. It's like a black hole with an automatic defense system. Escanor, who doesn't take crap from any archangel, ignores Ludociel's orders and decides to follow Merlin's risky plan to face Zeldris head-on. Mr. Pride himself is ready to shine. In Purgatory, Meliodas reveals a game-changing secret. Zeldris isn't such a villain after all. He tells Bon and Wild that his brother actually sacrificed himself to protect Gelda, his vampire girlfriend, whom the Demon King had sealed away. In flashbacks, we see Zeldris receiving the order to execute all vampires, but he secretly spares Gelda and hides her, betraying his own father for love. The guy is a tragic Romeo in the middle of a demonic apocalypse. Back in Camelot, Zeldris powers up Ominous Nebula, forcing the team of heroes to retreat. That's when Merlin, with her supercomputer brain, deciphers the technique, a combination of rotating darkness and superhuman reflexes called Full React. The situation seems impossible, but for Escanor, impossible is just a word. He activates the One mode, his most OP form.
Now the time has finally come.
Which only lasts for 1 minute, but what a minute it is. Completely ignoring the vortex that was wrecking everyone, Escanor charges forward and attacks Zeldris. He survives the full react counter and manages to wound the demon with his divine lance. But Zeldris, remembering the promise he made to Gelda, refuses to go down. The power of love gives the guy an extra boost. The battle reaches its climax. While in Purgatory, the trio gets ever closer to the final showdown with the Demon King. In Camelot, all hell is breaking loose with Escanor facing Zeldris. Meanwhile, Meliodas decides to open his heart and tell the story of his younger brother. Zeldris was in love with Gelda, a vampire. It's like a demon version of Romeo and Juliet. On the other side of the brawl, Merlin faces Chandler and Cusack, two elite demons who think she's just another mage. They have no idea. Merlin reveals that the guy's power is sealed and starts using a combo of elemental magic with her ability, Infinity. Basically, she found the boss's cheat code. Chandler is weak against lightning and Cusack is weak against wind. With every hit, their weakness only grows. In the middle of all this, Ludociel proves he's a jerk and refuses to help a badly injured Gil Thunder. Zeldris, already incapacitated, orders the demons to use their full power, but Merlin doesn't even flinch and defeats them both with some autonomous magic particles. The group celebrates their victory, but Meliodas feels that his memories of Estarossa are all jumbled. That's when the original Golther from the Demon Clan arrives to drop the biggest bombshell of the season. 3,000 years ago, he used a forbidden spell to mess with the mind of Mael, one of the 4 archangels, and turn him into the demon Estarossa, all to balance the war. Now the spell is breaking, and the fake Estarossa reveals his true identity. He is Mael, the archangel. What a plot twist.
What you're seeing is his true appearance.
What is this? Who am I? Why can't I?
One of the 4 archangels, Mael.
The revelation that Estarossa is actually the Archangel Mael left everyone speechless. Mael, his memories returning, goes after Golther, the doll who created this whole mess. He accuses Golther of stealing his life and forcing him to kill his own people. Golther, with the coldness of a machine, explains that the switch was necessary to balance the holy war after Meliodas betrayed everyone. Mael isn't interested in talking. Furious, he attacks Golther with the Arrow of Salvation, a strike that causes excruciating pain to anyone who isn't a demon. King steps in front with his spirit spear, but the situation only gets worse. During the fight, Mael absorbs one of the commandments, becoming even more corrupted and powerful. Sariel and Tarmiel try to hold him back, but it's useless. Seeing the situation, Derriere remembers her past with Monspeed and decides to sacrifice herself. She comes up with a plan and sends it telepathically through Golther. King distracts Mael, Sariel and Tarmiel immobilize him, and she attacks with everything she's got using her combo star, but the plan plan goes wrong. Mael manages to hit her with a fatal blow. Before dying, Derriere reveals that she and Monspeed had already been dead for 3,000 years and thanks Elizabeth for saving them. To top it all off, Mael absorbs another commandment and plunges completely into despair. Mael, completely consumed by the fusion with 4 commandments, transforms into a bizarre cocoon of light. Sariel and Tarmiel, out of energy, admit defeat. They failed to stop their friend. Meanwhile, in Camelot, the crew feels the impact. Dien, Hauser, and Dila deal with the shower of energy falling from the sky, and that's when Dien learns the whole truth about the Holy War and Derriere's sacrifice. From the cocoon, Mael re-emerges with a power level of over 200,000. Basically, he broke the game.
You gotta be kidding me! His power level is over 200,000?!
He launches the Light Ball of Love, a weird attack that turns fatal pain into pleasure. Golter manages to break the spell, and the trio of King, Dien, and Golter launch a combined attack. But Mayo has cheat codes activated. He uses the Bell of Truth to shatter illusions, and can even seal Dien's magic. King, with his wings still developing, nearly falls to his death. But Oslo, his loyal companion, throws himself in front of a fatal Attack 0K to save him. Oslo dies in King's arms, asking him to protect Dien. What a sad scene. Mael attacks again, but Gideon, Dien's sacred treasure, deflects the energy. King, out of magic, starts falling again, but Elizabeth appears to the rescue. At that moment, his wings finally mature, revealing his true potential as the most powerful fairy king of all time. With the confidence of someone who just got a major upgrade, King calms Dien down and goes after Mael. Meanwhile, Elizabeth can hear Mael's confused and hate-filled thoughts inside her head. When Mael threatens Elizabeth's life, King doesn't hesitate. He uses Chastifol's pollen garden to create a shield around everyone, giving up his ability to attack. But he quickly changes tactics and starts using multiple forms of his spear at once, clashing head-on with Mael's Scythe of Silence. King tries to appeal to his emotional side, talking about Mael's lost love and asking him to let go of his vengeance, but the guy isn't listening. The commandments start consuming Mael from the inside, but then Golter shows up with an ace up his sleeve. He uses induced reincarnation to sever Mael's connection to the commandments and free him. Now recovered, Mael agrees to join the Sins to end the Holy War. Meanwhile, in Camelot, Chandler and Cusack merge and become the original demon, revealing they were the two halves of a traitor created by the Demon King himself. Over in Purgatory, Meliodas and Ban are in an endless battle against the Demon King. The big boss's power is completely broken. With his ability, the Ruler, any attack he takes turns into healing. It's like fighting a guy with an infinite health cheat. After decades of getting their asses kicked, Ban finally figures out he can use his immortality as a weapon, a technique called Gift. Seeing an opportunity, the little pig-wild sacrifices himself using full Axel to hold back the Demon King, giving Meliodas and Ban time to escape through a gate. They end up separated. Ban returns to Britannia and finds Elaine on the verge of death after fighting some demons. Without hesitation, he uses Gift to transfer his immortality to her, saving her life, but losing his forever. No more eternal life for our immortal thief. Meanwhile, Meliodas lands near Camelot and senses that Merlin and Escanor are in danger. With the team reunited, including Mael, the Sins rush toward Camelot, ready for the confrontation with the original demon, who is already preparing for battle. The original demon arrives in Camelot and immediately shows what he's made of.
The halves of the sinner are reunited. I am the original demon.
Shattering Meliodas' darkness field like it's nothing. The guy's power is just absurd. Escanor, now past noon, and with his battery running low, struggles to defend Merlin and the wounded. King even shows up to help, controlling Chastifol's sunflower form from a distance, but the original demon bats the attack away without breaking a sweat. Suddenly, Ludociel leaves Margaret's body, weak and in shock to learn that Mael survived. That's when Hendrickson, who's been acting as a double agent this whole time, offers himself as a new vessel. Ludociel possesses his body and prepares to fight. To make matters worse, the 4 commandments that left Mael are flying towards Camelot, drawn to the commandments Meliodas absorbed. Merlin tries to cast a super powerful spell, Chrono Coffin, to freeze Meliodas' cocoon.
It can't be.
No way.
A forbidden spell, Chrono Coffin.
but the original demon interrupts her. Ludo Ciel steps in to protect her, declaring that he will now fight to protect others as an equal, not a god. Seeing how critical the situation is, Escanor pushes past all his limits and unleashes a cruel sun to buy time. Then comes the celestial gossip. Mayo, the archangel, reveals that the grace of sunshine, that absurd solar power, ended up with Escanor. He even offers to fight but says the power is no longer his. With time running out, Escanor, in a moment of great humility, decides to lend the grace back to Mael. Meanwhile, the original demon uses a bizarre ability called crisis, which basically makes him stronger the more damage he takes, a true battle of masochistic endurance. Mael returns to the fight and goes straight for Zeldris, proposing a peace treaty. If the demon clan retreats, he'll leave Meliodas alone. Zeldris gives him a big no, and the fight is on. Mael tries to use his solar energy, but Zeldris manages to block it all. With Merlin about to finish her spell, the mission becomes protect the mage at all costs. Finally, she casts Chrono Coffin, freezing Meliodas' cocoon and pausing the transformation at the last second. With the battle in Camelot supposedly won and Merlin's spell complete, everyone breathes a sigh of relief, thinking the holy war is finally over, but they're wrong. The cocoon cracks open, and to no one's surprise, things go south. Meliodas isn't there. In his place, a familiar figure emerges, but with the evil look of someone who's about to cancel your Netflix subscription.
I put you through a lot of trouble, didn't I? You and the 7 deadly sins.
Meliodas, is that you?
It's the Demon King himself, using Meliodas' body as his new apartment. He reveals that the plan was never to make Meliodas the new king, but to steal his body. To make matters worse, he starts mocking Zeldris about Gelda and promises to break Elizabeth's curse, just to kill her in front of everyone and plunge Meliodas into pure despair. A villain with a capital V. Suddenly, who pops up on the battlefield? Bon, straight from purgatory. He arrives with a visual upgrade and some news. He traded his immortality to resurrect Elaine. With no time for small talk, he immediately goes after the Demon King. From here, the fight becomes a bizarre 2v1. While Bon lays the smackdown on the Demon King in the real world, the real Meliodas is fighting a mental battle against his own father within his consciousness. The Demon King resorts to psychological warfare, lying that he's already killed Elizabeth and that there's no one left waiting for him. Just as the Demon King is about to devour Meliodas' mind, the power of friendship kicks in. Using his magic, Golther acts like a 5G router and connects the spirits of Elizabeth, Diane, King, Merlin, and Escanor directly into Meliodas' consciousness, like a mental group call. They all send him their strength, telling him that their power is his as well. This positive vibe works like an energy drink and revitalizes Meliodas, who manages to fight back. Meanwhile, in the real world, the crew attacks the Demon King in perfect sync with the internal struggle. The tables turn for good when Zeldris, furious upon discovering that his father knew about and manipulated his romance with Gelda all along, turns against him. With Zeldris serving as a distraction, Meliodas and Bon join forces for the finishing blow. In a combined attack from all 7 deadly sins, they finally manage to evict the Demon King, kicking the intruder out of Meliodas' body. The captain awakens, finally free and back in his own body, ready for hugs. Ludo Ciel announces that the threat has passed, but the holy war isn't over yet. With the victory, the gang celebrates the return of Bon and Meliodas.
The captain and Bon are finally back in the present world. There's nothing else we could ask for.
But the joy is short-lived. A new problem arises. Elizabeth's curse is back with a vengeance, and she only has 1 day to live. What terrible timing. However, Meliodas, who returned from purgatory with an upgrade, reveals he has the power to break the jinx. With a little help from Merlin, he literally rips out the physical manifestations of the curse, immortality and perpetual reincarnation, and destroys them.
Now be gone forever!
Problem solved? He wastes no time and asks Elizabeth to marry him. Finally, the group heads for Lyonesse, but first makes a stop in Edinburgh, where Meliodas frees Gelda, Zeldris' beloved. He tells her his brother has disappeared, and she, resolute, sets off to find her love, even if it's in another world. In Lyonesse, King Bartra announces the end of the war. Meanwhile, at the Boar Hat, Hawk is having an existential crisis, but the group cheers him up with a song. The scene closes with Meliodas and Bon reflecting on their crazy journey. The piece is is short-lived. Natural disasters start breaking out across Britannia, and it's all Meliodas' fault. Basically, he became the new demon king to save Elizabeth, and now the world is trying to expel him to restore balance, like a planetary immune system. Bond tells Diane that Meliodas will disappear soon and decides not to interfere, respecting his friend's sacrifice. As the gang prepares to reopen the bar, they all notice Meliodas and Elizabeth are in a bit of a funk. Elizabeth confesses to Diane that she already knows her man is leaving and accepts the situation with an enviable calmness. During the celebration, King Bartra offers the throne of Leones to Meliodas and his daughter's hand in marriage. But Elizabeth shocks everyone. She refuses and announces she's going with Meliodas to the demon world. If he's going, they're going together.
I'm going to the demon realm with Meliodas.
Confronted by the group, Meliodas opens up, feeling guilty for Arthur's death and Zeldris' sacrifice. But his friends are there to remind him he's a hero. Merlin, always with a trick up her sleeve, opens a portal to the demon world. The farewell is heartbreaking. Hawk decides to go to Purgatory instead of joining them. Without looking back, Elizabeth leaves with Meliodas, determined to stay by his side no matter where, as the rest of the group weeps at their departure. Thought it was over? Think again. Right after the couple's departure, the curse of perpetual reincarnation returns to Elizabeth out of nowhere. The gang figures it out instantly. The Demon King survived and found a new body to call his own. Merlin, the group's brain, deduces that the new host is Zeldris. Apparently, Cusack revived him by transferring all the commandments to him, turning him into the perfect vessel for the big boss. The Demon King, now in Zeldris' body, is heading to Lake Salisbury, the place with the highest concentration of magic in Britannia, to regain his full power. And to make sure no one crashes his party, he summons an Indura, a feared monster, to be his personal security guard. King, Dian, Golther, Merlin, and Escanor go after the Indura and its spawn, which are spreading across the kingdom. Meliodas can't fight because Elizabeth's curse is unstable, so he stays behind to protect her. But Elizabeth, seeing her beloved's conflict, decides to go into battle with him. Meanwhile, the Demon King plays dirty and uses an illusion of Gelda to manipulate Zeldris, convincing him that Meliodas betrayed them both. At the lake, Meliodas and Elizabeth arrive ready for the showdown. Meliodas declares that this senseless war has caused too much suffering and vows to end the cycle of pain. The final battle between brothers is about to begin.
This world doesn't want us. The atmosphere has become enraged because there's no place for two Demon Kings.
There's no place for even one Demon King.
Meanwhile, Bon and his crew are busy fighting some Indura spawn that the king himself summoned just to keep everyone occupied. Elizabeth and Meliodas rush to try and rescue Zeldris, but the Demon King is clever and uses Meliodas' brother as a human shield. But Elizabeth isn't messing around. She reveals her plan isn't just to protect Meliodas, but to defeat the king once and for all. She even launches an arc attack, but the villain neutralizes it like it's nothing. Far away, Bon uses his sacred staff to clear the area, but one of the monsters escapes toward Leonis. The Holy Knights try to hold it off, but the creature is too strong. That's when Escanor appears, even without the power of sunshine, ready to sacrifice himself. He says it's his duty as the eldest to protect everyone. Seeing this, Mael answers his prayer and returns the power, even knowing Escanor's body won't last long. At the same time, Meliodas insists on saving Zeldris, who's trapped in a mental fantasy. Meliodas calls out to his brother, but Zeldris is unable to break free. Enraged, Meliodas charges at the Demon King. But just as the Demon King recovers and is about to finish them both, the 7 deadly sins arrive in formation, ready for a fight. With the arrival of the 7 sins, the final battle kicks into high gear. Escanor, despite knowing that using sunshine will cost him his life, is more than ready to fight. The gang comes up with a plan worthy of a heist movie. Golther and Meliodas will invade the Demon King's mind to separate him from Zeldris, while the rest of the team holds the line in the real world. Escanor takes the front line, using his maximum strength to hold back the villain, creating the opening the others need. Inside the king's mind, Meliodas finds Zeldris surrounded by a bunch of cheap illusions. And who shows up to save the day? Gelda, who appears out of nowhere and manages to point out the real Zeldris, helping Meliodas rescue his brother. Back in reality, Diane uses her mother creation ability to completely dry up the magical lake that was serving as the Demon King's battery, basically cutting off his power source. Now weakened and without his power-up, the Demon King has to face Escanor, who is shining with all the power of High Noon, ready for the final round.
What? It's now high noon.
The one form is active, and high noon is approaching. Escanor, overflowing with power and pride, challenges the villain who, even weakened, doesn't lose his composure and remains arrogant. As the fight rages, flashbacks of Escanor's life begin to appear. The moment he joined the Seven Sins, when he met Merlin and the rest of the group, and how he finally found a purpose and a family. Seeing that this is his last battle, he makes a heroic decision to convert his entire life force into magical power.
How is he able to sustain the one for over a minute?
Accepting the sacrifice, it's the ultimate all-in. With a final devastating blow, Escanor uses every last drop of his life to defeat the Demon King, fulfilling his oath to protect his friends at any cost. Then he activates his ultimate move, the One Ultimate, which is basically a kamikaze attack. He converts his entire life force into magical power, all to thank his friends for ending his loneliness. It's like a farewell letter written in fire. The Seven Sins panic, yelling for him to stop, but Escanor is determined. Seeing there's no other way, they declare their loyalty and decide to fight alongside him until the end. If he's going down, they're all going down together. Meanwhile, in the spirit world, Zeldris is having an internal struggle with the Demon King, who has possessed his body. Fueled by his love for Gelda, Zeldris uses his control over that plane to fight back. Suddenly, Zeldris lands a devastating punch on the Demon King, forcing the intruder out of his own body. Zeldris is finally reunited with Gelda, but the celebration is short-lived. The Demon King, now without a body, starts acting like a cosmic parasite, sucking the life force from all of Britannia to form a new gigantic body. His voice echoes everywhere, announcing that the apocalypse has arrived. The Demon King is now a colossal entity made from the very land of Britannia, like a video game boss that has become the entire stage. He starts unleashing devastating attacks, but when the Seven Sins fight back, he activates a broken ability called the Ruler, which simply nullifies everything. That's where Golther, the group's hacker, steps in, using his kill switch to turn off the villain's cheat code. With his defenses down, Merlin gives everyone a power-up. The Sins launch a combined attack so powerful it could destroy the continent. To prevent disaster, Meliodas acts as a lightning rod and redirects all that energy into a magical lake. The Demon King is pulverized, but his essence still lingers in the air. To ensure he never returns, Meliodas and Zeldris combine their powers and erase the Demon King from existence. The battle ends, and with it, Escanor's life. His energy runs out and he collapses. In a final effort, he says goodbye to each of his friends, thanking them for everything and confessing his eternal love for Merlin. With his last breath, he disintegrates into particles of light, leaving everyone in a heavy silence. The war is over, but victory has a bitter taste. While all of Britannia celebrates the end of the Holy War with parties and fireworks, the Seven Sins are mourning Escanor's death. In the midst of this, Vivian reappears, alive and well, and now obsessed with Dreyfus, which finally frees Gilthunder from his old crush. Lucky him. The group reunites and notices the burns on Merlin, a mark left by Escanor's power as a symbol of his love. They all reflect on their happy endings. Meliodas and Elizabeth are free from their curses, Bon and Elaine are together, Golther has regained his heart, and King and Diane are engaged. Only Merlin remains a mystery. Losing patience, they press the mage to finally come clean. And the revelation is a bombshell. Her true goal has always been to awaken Arthur as the King of Chaos. Using the magical lake, Merlin resurrects the boy, who returns from the dead with an absurd and uncontrollable power. Completely overwhelmed, Arthur attacks Meliodas without thinking, but Merlin stops him. From the lake emerges a priestess of chaos, who begins to tell the whole story. Merlin's lonely childhood, her unrequited love for Meliodas, and her plan to bring back chaos to fill the void in her heart. Arthur just stands there, clueless about his new and unexpected destiny. Bon tries to defend his friend, talking about her loyalty, but Merlin spills all the tea. She commissioned the Coffin of Eternal Darkness, intentionally delayed a spell, made them attack the lake, and, to top it all off, reactivated Elizabeth's curse, just to keep Meliodas focused on the mission. Meliodas is pissed, accusing her of trying to kill Elizabeth. Merlin defends herself, saying she reactivated the curse but also saved her life. The Sins feel betrayed, but she says they could never understand her motives. She confirms that chaos is real, and that they've met it before. Hawk's Marm was a temporary vessel, and now all the power is inside Arthur. Suddenly, a bizarre creature named Kath appears, rips off Arthur's arm, and calmly devours it. We learn it's a beast of chaos. The Sins, exhausted and without their souped-up weapons, charge in, but the beast traps them in another dimension. mission. Arthur manages to fight back and wound the monster, but Merlin has to freeze time around it, warning that it will return. Meliodas keeps an eye on her mysterious smile, sensing there's much more trouble to come. The 7 deadly sins return to help Merlin and Arthur, only to find the rubble of Camelot destroyed in the previous battle. And who shows up to kick them while they're down? Cath. Mocking Arthur for losing his kingdom and his people, Merlin tries to calm him down so he doesn't fall into despair. But then, in a grand entrance, Meliodas and Elizabeth arrive. The team reunites to face the little monster once and for all. Cath continues his mockery, saying Arthur's dreams are worthless and that everything is destined to end. But Arthur, remembering Meliodas' words, fills with courage and delivers a top-tier protagonist speech. He vows to create a kingdom of eternity where no one will suffer again. With this newfound confidence, Arthur turns the tables. He simply absorbs Cath, taking full control of the power of chaos. He's like Kirby, but with a sword and a kingdom to rebuild. His holy sword manifests in its true form, and Merlin gives her seal of approval. Arthur is ready. The Sins say their goodbyes, with the classic, "We support you, but if you turn evil, we'll take you down" talk. Arthur thanks them, determined to carry on their legacy, and Britannia can finally breathe in peace. With peace reigning in Britannia, it's time for the 7 deadly sins to say goodbye. It's like the finale of a sitcom, only with more magic and fewer New York apartments. King and Diane head to the fairy realm to plan their wedding. Bon and Elaine go backpacking across the world. Gunther sets off on a journey of self-discovery, like a spiritual guru, and even Hawk goes to Purgatory to pay respects to his brother. The camera focuses on Leonis, where Meliodas, Elizabeth, and their 10-year-old son Tristan are living their lives. The kid discovers his father's criminal past, and, in his mind, the deadly sins are a gang planning a coup. Full of swagger, Tristan goes to confront them, ready to defend the kingdom, but Meliodas, with all the patience in the world, sits down with his son and explains that's not quite how the story goes. Instead of a scolding, Tristan gets the best gift of all, the complete narrative of the adventures of the 7 deadly sins. On his birthday, inspired by everything he's heard, the boy announces his greatest wish, to join the 7 deadly sins in the future. The torch has been passed and a new generation of heroes is officially on its way.